Story 1.
My wife wanted an open marriage and cheated, so I got my revenge, divorced her, and disappeared for good. Laying down ceramic tiles, each measuring 4 at 4 inches, in a 10x12 kitchen, demanded considerable effort. Ronnie Jackson meticulously applied adhesive to each tile before carefully aligning it with the previous one, ensuring proper alignment. He nodded in satisfaction, recognizing that even minor deviations in millimeters could jeopardize the project's success. Given Eccles Renovation and Remodeling's commitment to 100% satisfaction, Ronnie ensured every tile was flawlessly installed before proceeding. Sensing the completion of a row, Charlotte, Ronnie's wife, contacted Eccles on Ronnie's behalf. Answering the call, Ronnie prepared to begin the next row, already reaching for the box of tiles. The days when Charlotte greeted him warmly were gone. Her inquiries had become curt and impatient. Charlotte asked when he would be done. Ronnie assessed his progress and estimated it would take him about 3 hours in Pritchard's kitchen. After hearing his response, Charlotte ended the call abruptly, leaving Ronnie feeling pressured to hurry up. Despite his eagerness to finish quickly, Ronnie compelled himself to work with deliberate precision. Amidst his tasks, thoughts of his wife, with whom he had shared over 2 decades, lingered. Ronnie's acquaintance with Charlotte began at Eccles Renovation and Remodeling, where he first encountered her during his early days on the job. As Charlotte entered J.N. Eccles' office, apologizing for her academic shortcomings at John W. Dawson High School, Ronnie observed her stout figure and long, wavy hair. Though distracted momentarily, he refocused on the array of hand tools in John's shed, only to be reminded sharply by J.N. that Charlotte was his daughter. "Yes, sir," Ronnie responded, resisting the impulse to shrug apathetically, sensing her father's reluctance for her to engage with his new employee. Charlotte adopted a habit of smiling flirtatiously and greeting Ronnie whenever they crossed paths. Ronnie remained courteous toward her but didn't encourage her attention. "You understand, right?" John admonished Ronnie. "I don't want you chasing after my daughter, got it?" "I'm not pursuing your daughter," Ronnie replied honestly. In truth, 21-year-old Ronnie found 17-year-old Charlotte Rue Eckel nothing more than a nuisance. She carried at least 50 extra pounds, struggled with severe acne, and possessed qualities that Ronnie found particularly unattractive. Additionally, he considered Charlotte to be quite immature. "Hey, Ronnie," Charlotte said coyly one day as Ronnie and another Eccles employee were unloading their equipment after a long day. "Uh-huh," Ronnie said, struggling with an unopened bag of quick-drying cement. "Listen, I turn 18 on Saturday." Charlotte leaned forward, granting Ronnie an unhindered sight of her blouse's front. "That looks nice," Ronnie remarked. "Happy birthday." Another coworker chimed in with a smile. "So, Ronnie, what's my birthday present?" Charlotte playfully inquired. "Close your eyes," Ronnie proposed, dragging his bag to the pickup truck's rear door. "Sure thing," Charlotte giggled. "What do you see?" Ronnie asked, tossing his bag into the vehicle. Nothing," Charlotte replied. "This is your gift." "Happy birthday," Ronnie announced, dragging the bag of cement toward the barn. Lois Eckel compelled John Eckel to invite Ronnie Jackson to their home for Charlotte's birthday celebration. A medical store in Dolan, Utah, sold Ronnie a lovely birthday card, while a pawn shop in Fairway, Utah, provided him with a beautiful silver bracelet for $20. Lois pressured John into asking Ronnie to escort Charlotte to the prom. Despite wincing at Charlotte's appearance in a tight, sleeveless dress, Ronnie courteously accompanied her, posing for photos, dancing with her, and escorting her home with a goodnight kiss. Days later, John reprimanded Ronnie for Charlotte's heartbreak due to his failure to call her. Despite his reluctance, Ronnie contacted Charlotte and asked her out, leading to subsequent dates. On the 5th date, Charlotte gave Ronnie her purity. Tracy Lois Jackson was born 5 months after their wedding, and for the subsequent decade, Ronnie Jackson endured the least desirable assignments at Eccles Renovation and Remodeling. Ronnie was convinced that on some occasions, J.N. Eckel deliberately secured jobs for Eccles Renovation and Remodeling just to burden his son-in-law with arduous tasks. Throughout the first 16 years of their marriage, Charlotte Jackson proved to be a devoted wife, striving to understand her husband's preferences and dislikes, mastering his favorite dishes, and observing silence on Sundays during Denver Broncos games. Charlotte also made efforts to lose weight, albeit with fluctuating success. Her skin improved somewhat, but acne scars remained visible, even with the aid of cosmetics. Despite these challenges, when Tracy attended Grover Cleveland Elementary School, Charlotte secured employment at the Garland County Public Library. Despite its modest pay, the comprehensive benefits, including health and dental insurance, made it a valuable opportunity. Right after commemorating their 16th wedding anniversary, Charlotte's cousin Darlene relocated to Dolan, Utah, with her third or fourth husband in tow, their whereabouts a mystery. Darlene's boisterous, crude nature was matched by her husband, Gary, who was no better, particularly since he was an ardent Dallas Cowboys fan. Unfortunately, Darlene's negative influence rubbed off on Charlotte, who became loud, brash, and prone to complaints, neglecting household duties, including cooking. Despite this, Ronnie, skilled in the kitchen and cleaning, didn't mind the extra workload. However, what was initially occasional slack turned into a nightly occurrence, as Charlotte, Darlene, and Gary often found activities outside the Jackson house. Meanwhile, Tracy learned household chores and sewing buttons on her school uniform, harboring resentment toward her father for her mother's neglect, rather than directing it at her mother. Ronnie's timing was almost impeccable. 3 hours after Charlotte's call, he completed the threshold installation. Struggling with stiffness in his back, Ronnie pondered his age while gathering tools and remaining tiles from the Pritchard house. Contacting J.N. Eckel, Ronnie winced at the man's slurred speech, a result of a near-fatal blow that left him recovering slowly. John had suffered a massive stroke shortly after his wife, Lois, disclosed her breast cancer diagnosis. Despite Lois's double mastectomy and radiation treatment, she remained burdened with caring for her husband. Dennis Eckel, aided by their sons, Brian and Paul, along with Ronnie's assistance when necessary. Charlotte, the family's sole daughter, remained her mother's constant companion, driving her to Fairway Hospital and offering comfort during her moments of pain. Despite Lois's passing, John appeared reluctant to let go of life. Daily, he was wheeled into the office, cursing his useless left hand as he attempted to type on his computer keyboard. Afterwards, Dennis, Brian, or Paul would drive J.N. home. Ronnie informed John over the phone that he was leaving Pritchard's job and it was finished. John responded with grunts, barks, and wheezes. Back home, Ronnie savored the aroma of his favorite meal, pork chops, mashed potatoes, and French-cut green beans. After John suffered a debilitating stroke, Charlotte put the Jackson family on a heart-healthy diet. Despite losing 40 lbs on the diet, Charlotte remained overweight. Ronnie accused Tracy of going to Brigham Young University solely to avoid Charlotte's bland cooking, a claim Tracy didn't dispute. While Charlotte was busy at the stove, Ronnie leaned in for a kiss, but she waved him away and pinched her nose. Ronnie tossed his clothes into the hamper and washed away the sweat from his tired body. This work was tough enough when he was 21, and at 43 it strained his capabilities and didn't benefit his health. However, Dennis, Brian, and Paul paid no heed to his struggles. With mounting medical bills from John Eckel's rehabilitation, they claimed there was no money in the budget to hire help. Drying himself off, Ronnie ignored the reflection of a fit man in the foggy mirror. Clad in a t-shirt and shorts, he went downstairs just as Charlotte was setting his plate for dessert. "We've got hot apple pie," Charlotte announced, placing a frosted mug and a can of beer before him. "Oh my God," Ronnie exclaimed inwardly, feeling bile rise in his stomach. He recalled the last time Charlotte served him frosted beer, enjoying it on her 35th birthday months before their 17th anniversary. As Tracy was out with friends, Charlotte poured Ronnie a beer in a frosted mug. He savored the taste of the cold drink until Charlotte interrupted, saying, "Darling, there's something I need to talk to you about." Ronnie remained silent as Charlotte spoke at length about nothing in particular. Eventually, Ronnie urged her to get to the point as his beer was almost finished. Charlotte then revealed that Darlene and Gary weren't exclusive. They had an open marriage. She then asked Ronnie if he had ever considered being unfaithful. "Indeed, I am a man," Ronnie affirmed. "I was eyeing that girl Shelley at the gas station," he confessed. Charlotte retorted, "Shelley from the gas station? As if you'd ever stand a chance." "But I'm married," Ronnie added. "Sure, I think about it, but that's where it ends." "Did you think I'd take it further?" Charlotte pressed on. "Did you believe you could act without facing consequences?" "I can't, Charlotte," Ronnie stated. "We're married. We made vows before our family and friends." Finishing his drink, Ronnie got up, cleaned his mug, and said, "We pledge to be faithful, to forsake all others, including Shelley from the gas station." "We could renew our vows," Charlotte proposed. "No new vows," Ronnie replied firmly, placing the clean mug in the cabinet. "Our original vows suffice. While Darlene and Gary may have an open marriage, we don't, and never will." "But," Charlotte began. "No buts. End of discussion," Ronnie cut in, exiting the kitchen. Ronnie hoped that was the end of it. However, Charlotte revisited the topic twice more. Each time, Ronnie firmly declined. "But honey," Charlotte persisted, "it's a testament to our love. We trust each other enough for this." Annoyed, Ronnie retorted, "Do you even hear the nonsense you're saying? If you think I should let you cheat to prove my love, maybe I don't love you. Frustrated when Charlotte mentioned an open marriage for the fourth time, Ronnie called her father. Charlotte watched the phone ring. "Hello, John, how are you?" Ronnie greeted. Charlotte's expression turned pale, realizing Ronnie was speaking to her father. Adding to her unease, Ronnie asked for Lois. "Hey, Lois, Charlotte has something to share with you," Ronnie conveyed. "Charlotte, tell your mom about what Darlene told you." Reluctantly, Charlotte took the phone from Ronnie. As she tried to stand from the table, Ronnie, foreseeing her move, firmly restrained her. Feeling cornered, Charlotte rambled incoherently and eventually ended the call. "Despicable," she snapped at Ronnie. "Listen, Charlotte," Ronnie warned, "mention this open marriage idea again and our marriage will end. We'll get divorced." Charlotte never raised the topic again. Relieved, Ronnie noticed Darlene and Gary's efforts to reach out diminished. The pair, labeled the Toxic Twins by Ronnie, visited less frequently. Fast forward 5 years. Ronnie observed Charlotte pouring his beer, nearly overflowing with foam. She wasn't adept at it. "I'll be 40. Next Tuesday," Charlotte began as Ronnie tasted his pork chop. "Yes," he acknowledged, swallowing. "And I was a Vestal when we met," Charlotte added. "Turning 40 and being a Vestal," Ronnie remarked, taking another bite. "The big 40, Charlotte emphasized. "During all this time, I've only been with one man." "Luckily for you," Ronnie quipped. "You've been with what, at least 10 women?" "Kidding, Ronnie?" Charlotte queried. "Is that fair?" "Life isn't always fair," Ronnie responded, sipping his beer. "Considering my upcoming birthday and all I've done for you, Tracy, and my parents, I think I deserve some freedom. Darlene and I are heading to Las Vegas next week. She found a good deal at a casino," Charlotte shared. Ronnie continued eating and drinking. "While there, we might meet some guys," Charlotte proposed. "Not necessarily for anything serious, just a date. Let me see what it's like with someone else. It might make me value what I have even more," she said. "The sauce is almost perfect," Ronnie commented. "What's your take?" Charlotte inquired. "I've told you, the sauce is nearly spot on," Ronnie responded. "Ronnie, this is about me branching out, gaining experience," Charlotte retorted. "So you're suggesting I'm being unfaithful?" Ronnie questioned. "I've made up my mind," Charlotte asserted. "You can either support me or opt for a divorce, your choice." "I'll initiate the divorce," Ronnie stated. "Do we have any ice cream for this pie?" "Hold on, Charlotte, divorces cost a fortune." "We can't just brush that aside," Ronnie exclaimed, surprised. "What's there to discuss? You've clearly decided everything. You and your dubious cousin are heading to Vegas. You're not asking, you've already chosen Vegas. Forget our massive pile of bills here, you're off to Vegas for your big 40 celebration. And while you're at it, maybe a date, even though you're married. You think that's okay? I either support your plan or face divorce," Ronnie said, pushing his empty plate away. "Does this pie come with ice cream?" "It's just for 1 week," Charlotte defended. "A week, a day, a minute, it doesn't change anything, Charlotte," Ronnie responded, slicing a piece of pie. "Infidelity is infidelity, and I won't be married to a cheater. So no ice cream." "Maybe you can take Darlene," Charlotte posed. "Absolutely not," Ronnie chuckled. "Charlotte, I wouldn't be with Darlene if she were the last person on earth." Ronnie tasted the pie, frowned in distaste, and said, "Oh, wonderful, you used that aspartame stuff, didn't you?" Pushing his plate away, standing up, Ronnie wiped his mouth, exiting the kitchen. "I'm seeing a lawyer tomorrow to start the divorce process," Ronnie declared, heading upstairs. Pritchard's job was done, and Dennis wasn't planning anything until he got the green light to rebuild the federal savings and loan. "But Ronnie, you never listen," Charlotte interjected. "Sure," Ronnie yelled from downstairs. "You never heard me. I told you the consequences. If you brought this up again, we're getting divorced." In their third bedroom turned home office, Ronnie powered up the computer. Though outdated, it still functioned and had internet access. After entering a search, Ronnie began looking for lawyers. He found Penny Barnes's online form and completed it. Shortly after, he received a call confirming an appointment with Penny Barnes the next morning at 10. After Charlotte cleaned the kitchen, she went upstairs. Undressing, she got into bed. When Charlotte pressed against him, Ronnie pulled away. "No thanks," he said, turning away. "Good night." Ronnie woke up at his regular time, 5:30 in the morning. Even though he didn't have work, he still rose at his customary hour. Quietly, he left the bed and softly closed their bedroom door. Descending to the kitchen, he brewed coffee and checked his email on his cell phone. An email from Penny Barnes's office detailed what he should bring to the 7:00 meeting. Ronnie debated having a second cup of coffee. Hearing Charlotte moving around upstairs, he chose not to make coffee for her. If she wanted some, she could make it herself. No, I told him. Give it to me." Charlotte's voice came from her cell phone as she descended the stairs. Spotting Ronnie calmly reading news on his phone, she let out a shriek. She quickly ended her call and pocketed her phone. "Ronnie, what are you doing here?" Charlotte inquired. "I mentioned Dennis hasn't received approval to start rebuilding the federal savings and loan, so I'm free today," Ronnie replied. "The grass is too damp to mow, so I caught up on today's news. Did you hear Burns is considering a second location? You could have saved me some coffee," Charlotte complained. "You can ask Darlene to make you some," Ronnie replied, placing his cup in the sink. Penny Barnes, an attractive brunette, wore glasses that Ronnie suspected were just for show to appear more intellectual and serious. "Penny," Ronnie remarked, examining their financial documents, "you recently refinanced at 3.9%? My daughter's in her final year," Ronnie explained, "plus my in-laws had hefty medical bills. Their deductibles were sky-high, then funeral costs, and Eckel was nearly bankrupt. A couple of projects went over budget because Paul failed to time the orders right." "Yes," Penny nodded, reading on. "So, Mr. Jackson, how will divorcing your employer's daughter impact your job?" "I plan to end the relationship," Ronnie responded, a hint of a smile appearing. "But Mrs. Jackson's position at the Garland County Public Library shouldn't be jeopardized," Penny speculated. By Friday, Dennis still hadn't gotten the go-ahead for the federal savings and loan renovations. Ronnie was at home completing renovations when Charlotte called. "What's this? What kind of scam?" Charlotte yelled as Ronnie picked up. "Oh, you have the documents," Ronnie remarked. "What's the issue with the first-floor bathroom? You mentioned something needs fixing, but honestly, I can't figure out the problem," Ronnie asked. "The lock is sticking," Charlotte replied. "We'll need to discuss this when I get home." "All right." "No, we've already had that discussion. Talking hasn't helped, especially when you seem more inclined to heed Darlene over your own husband." "So I'm done talking," Ronnie stated firmly. "All right, I see what's going on. Got it. Goodbye." "But I don't want a divorce," Charlotte lamented. "And I don't want to be married to an unfaithful person," Ronnie shot back. "Anything else?" "No." "Goodbye then." Ronnie declined Charlotte's subsequent call. When John's number flashed on the screen, Ronnie sat down his screwdriver and answered. "Hello," Ronnie greeted. Jay interrupted with a mix of frustrated sounds and exclamations. Ronnie was surprised at the range of swear words he could discern as his father-in-law pressed for details about Ronnie and Charlotte. "It's pretty straightforward, sir," Ronnie began. "Darlene and her spouse practice an open marriage, and they influence Charlotte to consider it too. I made it clear I'm not interested in that." Amidst another emotional outburst from John, Ronnie continued, "Your daughter gave me an ultimatum last night, accept it or divorce. So I chose divorce." John attempted to argue further, even resorting to emotional manipulation. "Sir, I appreciate your concern," Ronnie fibbed, "but with 3 sons and a daughter, this issue should be handled by them, not me. Besides, why would I want a business that's been losing money for 3 years?" Ronnie muttered to himself. Charlotte returned home with reinforcements. Ronnie anticipated this and remained silent as Darlene and Gary voiced their perspectives. "You see, Ronnie, since we're secure in our marriage," Gary smirked, "Darlene can maintain friendships outside of it. I mean, as long as she returns to me, right?" Darlene added, "And we share everything, no secrets. It's brought us closer." "Well, that certainly brings clarity," Ronnie remarked. Charlotte, Darlene, and Gary smiled in response. "Actually," Ronnie corrected, rising from the couch, "after our divorce, Charlotte, feel free to share your life and inner world with whomever you choose." "Oh, what's this?" Gary smirked. "So just because you feel inadequate, Charlotte should suppress her own talents and desires?" Ronnie flashed a grin, revealing all his teeth. He then strolled to the living room exit, facing the stairs. "If believing that makes you feel better, go right ahead," Ronnie said, departing the room. Once more that night, Charlotte attempted to initiate closeness. "Rest up, Charlotte. You got a busy day ahead, don't you?" Ronnie said with a grin. As was his routine, Ronnie woke at 5:30 and left the bed. He no longer concerned himself with closing their bedroom door, indifferent to whether his early movements disturbed Charlotte. Descending the stairs, he brewed coffee, sipped it while perusing the news on his phone, and found himself scoffing at national headlines. These politicians really should live by their own standards. Lifetime perks? Forget it. Try living on Social Security. Private health care? Nope. Here's the same insurance they've mandated for everyone else, he muttered. At 11, Gary knocked on the door. Ronnie answered, and Gary attempted to enter. Ronnie's firm hand halted Gary's eager advance. "What's up?" Ronnie inquired. "I'm here to pick up Charlotte for the airport," Gary explained, making another attempt to enter. "I'll inform her you're here," Ronnie said, nudging Gary back and shutting the door. Returning to his recorded sitcom, shortly after, Charlotte descended the stairs with her suitcase. Why didn't you tell me Gary and Darlene were waiting outside? She demanded of Ronnie. Oh right, Gary and Darlene are here, Ronnie replied, refocusing on his show. Seriously, must you act so immaturely? Charlotte exclaimed as she leaned in towards Ronnie. He sidestepped, leaving her to kiss the empty air. We'll discuss this when I return, Charlotte stated. No, we won't be doing that, Ronnie responded. After watching his sitcom and enjoying a satisfying meal, Ronnie finished his tasks by painting the front door a pale yellow. It complemented the house's red brick exterior beautifully. He chuckled when their cat, Samson, meowed from the garage. Samson was well provided for with food, water, and a clean litter box. I'll let you out once the paint dries, buddy, Ronnie assured the cat. Upstairs, he canceled their shared credit cards. He wasn't aware of any cards Charlotte had separately and had no intention of supporting her indiscretions or her cousin's lavish lifestyle. He accessed Charlotte's personal bank account and withdrew half the balance. Similarly, he withdrew half from their joint account, from which he was the sole contributor. Utilizing the bank's website, he opened a new account solely in his name and transferred the withdrawn funds there. Online services facilitated the removal of his name from utilities and cable TV. He shrugged off an email from Garland County Power and Light stating the cancellation would occur at the billing cycle's end. Doesn't matter, Ronnie commented to the screen. Time for Sloan's Pizza, Ronnie thought as his stomach rumbled. Charlotte never let me eat there, maybe I'll drop dead from a heart attack. He ordered pizza and a draft beer. He flirted with the waitress, even though she was significantly overweight. She smiled, tapping his wedding ring with her long nail. Ronnie glanced at the ring, his mood souring. He thanked her, left a tip in his truck, and departed. After considerable effort, Ronnie removed the ring, placing it in the console cup holder. Forever love. Ah, Charlotte, he mused aloud. Guess that ended today. His truck signaled low fuel. At the gas station, he initially chose $10 worth but decided to fill the tank completely. Filling 22 gallons sure takes time, Ronnie commented as the pump continued to gurgle. He visited a nearby convenience store and found Budweiser beer. While walking past another set of refrigerators, he noticed containers of ice cream. He picked up a pint of strawberry ice cream and brought both items to the counter. Shelley was no longer working there. She had gotten married, much to the disappointment of Ronnie and many other men who frequented that gas station just to see her behind the counter. However, Shannon Carlisle, a petite brunette now working there, was almost as attractive as Shelley. Ronnie grinned as Shannon stepped onto a milk crate she had placed by the cash register. On a previous occasion, he had asked her height, to which she sharply responded, I'm 4 feet 8 inches tall. How short are you? Ronnie quipped. Her eyes widened momentarily, then she burst into hearty laughter, brightening her already pretty face. From then on, she affectionately referred to Ronnie as Shorty. Your wife out of town, Shorty? Shannon inquired, observing his purchases. My wife is gone for good, Ronnie replied. Shannon glanced at Ronnie's left hand, then met his eyes. After studying his face briefly, she asked, So, where are you taking me on our first date? Brushing her thick brown hair back with her hand, Shannon, as lovely as you are. Why would you want to date an old guy like me? Ronnie questioned. That's about 7 inches, Shannon remarked, bagging Ronnie's items. Charlotte's 40th birthday was on Tuesday. On Wednesday, their daughter Tracy called Ronnie at Eccles Renovation and Remodeling. Dad, yesterday was Mom's birthday, Tracy informed him. Yeah, so? Ronnie responded, scratching his stubbled face. Why didn't you call her? Tracy pressed. I didn't want this, Ronnie sighed. I just didn't, kiddo. Why? Tracy persisted. You'll understand soon, Ronnie replied. Your mother believes that now that she's 40, she should be with other men. What? Tracy exclaimed. What do they teach you in school? Ronnie retorted. She's married. Married women don't date other men, Tracy clarified. Oh, that's so old-fashioned, Tracy laughed. Goodbye, Tracy, Ronnie said, ending the call. 10 minutes later, Charlotte's number appeared on Ronnie's phone. Despite recognizing the caller, he answered. Eccles Renovation and Remodeling. Hi, Ronnie, Charlotte greeted firmly. So, how's being a 40-year-old? Ronnie quipped. This isn't a joke, Ronnie, Charlotte snapped. I agree, it's not funny, Ronnie conceded. And thanks for canceling the credit cards, Charlotte added. You're welcome, Ronnie responded. Anything else? My birthday was yesterday, Charlotte mentioned. Why didn't you call? Ronnie questioned. I didn't want this. Maybe whoever you're with would have wished you, Ronnie suggested. Grow up, Ronnie, Charlotte retorted. Really, Charlotte? Adults honor their commitments and respect their vows, Ronnie stated. Who's Melissa Kirk? Charlotte inquired. Remember Melissa Stroh? She married Lucy Kirk, the bank manager, Ronnie clarified. Regardless, she's employed at Gold Standard Real Estate now. I've got this adorable redhead. She's as charming as can be. On the bright side, she believes she can quickly find a buyer for our house, Ronnie shared. Buyer? Ronnie, we aren't selling the house, Charlotte exclaimed over the phone. Can you really afford to surprise me like this? We have to settle the second mortgage. As Melissa informed me, she might find a buyer, but will likely need to bring cash to clear that mortgage, Ronnie replied. We're not selling the house, Charlotte reiterated loudly. I've stored all your furniture at the Easy Warehouse on Independence Road, next to Chevrolet Place, Ronnie added. Unit 212. Your dad has the key. Oh Lord, Ronnie, I need to get home. Charlotte's voice was filled with distress. Your dad couldn't fetch Samson, so I took him to Dennis's, Ronnie continued. Dennis? Oh God, Dennis has those Dobermans, Charlotte exclaimed in terror. Ah, shoot, I didn't consider that, Ronnie chuckled. No wonder he was keen on adopting that cat. Ignoring his wife's pleas, Ronnie ended the call, leaving the phone on the kitchen counter. But he headed upstairs to surf the internet. He heard his cell phone ring but chose to ignore it. Maybe your mom's new boyfriend can cover his final school year, Ronnie muttered. Why don't you check for a scholarship for students with a GPA of 2.1? Because with that attitude, it's tough to expect your dad to finance your education, he retorted. After shutting down the computer, Ronnie shaved, removing 3 days of stubble carefully. He then took a hot shower, got dressed in jeans and a t-shirt. The computer was in the pickup truck's cab, behind the passenger seat. As his final act, Ronnie discarded his cell phone in the trash and wheeled the trash can to the curb. Going to miss you, Herman Vogert, a neighbor, greeted Ronnie on the street. Vogert, you won't do this, Ronnie laughed, shaking Herman's hand. The most we spoke was when you griped about Tracy's boys blasting their music. It's tough getting neighbors to give you space. Ah man, Herman said. You were the ideal neighbor. Never borrowed stuff, never asked me to feed your cat or collect your mail during vacations. I bet the next folks will be all over me. You brought it on yourself being so friendly, Ronnie remarked. The trash can's ringing, Herman pointed out. Mind your business. It's probably some critter, Ronnie smirked, shaking Herman's hand again. Charlotte tried unlocking the front door but found her key didn't fit. She pulled out her phone, dialed the number for Gold Standard Real Estate listed on the sign, and stared at it in disbelief. Her phone was fully charged, but it seemed faulty. Darlene lent Charlotte her cell while Gary checked the house's windows and doors. Charlotte whispered curses when the call connected. Gold Standard Real Estate, Melissa Kirk speaking, Melissa greeted cheerfully. This is Charlotte Jackson, Charlotte snapped. My key doesn't work at my house. Ah, Ronald Jackson's ex, Melissa chirped. Ex? Ex? Charlotte retorted. I need to sign some paperwork, Melissa continued. Guess what? I have clients interested in your home. It's not for sale, Charlotte exclaimed. So, are you buying out Mr. Jackson? Melissa probed. The Richmonds might be disappointed. They like the Purcell house too. Gary returned, confirming the house was secure. Charlotte reiterated the house wasn't for sale and called Ronnie. You idiot, Charlotte muttered as Ronnie's voice answered. Eccles Renovations and Remodeling. Can we drop you somewhere? Gary interrupted, growing impatient. My cat, Charlotte remembered, squeezing back into the car. Hey, Dennis answered. It's me, Ronnie said. He gave Samson to you? Charlotte asked. With poppy, olive oil, and blue tulle around? They'd shred that cat, Dennis snapped. No, Dad has him. You need to get him. Dad's physical therapist is allergic. Thank goodness, Charlotte sighed. Thanks, Dennis continued. Ronnie's disappearance almost bankrupted us. I secured a federal loan but had to let Fremont take it because none of us can lay ceramic tile. Uh-huh, Charlotte interrupted. Who else are you calling? Darlene snapped as Charlotte dialed her dad's number. Don't you have unlimited? Charlotte asked. Nope. 1,000 minutes monthly. Mr. Football used most, Darlene replied. Last call, Charlotte assured. John angrily agreed to let her come over. Gary drove them to John Eccles' house. Darlene and Charlotte hugged, and Charlotte headed inside. How was it? Gary asked Darlene as she got in the car. Disastrous, Darlene sighed. Who'd want her, not with you around? Gary joked, watching Charlotte enter. Any money from her? Darlene inquired. Almost, Gary said, pulling out. Ronnie's such a pain. Can you hear me? Darlene sounded frustrated. He canceled her credit cards. She used her debit, Gary explained. ATMs are everywhere, Darlene pointed out. She got about $10, Gary muttered. We need gas, Darlene stated. With ATMs and the internet, she's fine, Gary reasoned. Unless your football-obsessed hubby isn't hogging minutes, Darlene retorted. Here's $20, Gary handed Darlene. She went online, Darlene concluded. What's the connection to ATMs? Gary inquired as he steered into the gas station. Charlotte noticed Ronnie covered half her bill. Just grab $10, all right? We still have the electricity. Bill to cover unless you've settled it already, Darlene suggested. Gary nodded and entered the adjoining convenience store. Darlene observed Gary glance at the beer cooler and then honk the car horn. Gary shot her a disapproving look through the store's window but proceeded to the counter. I was only getting one can, Gary claimed upon his return. Just one? Darlene retorted. When was the last time you settled for just one can? Gary mumbled. Hey, isn't that petite lady new here? How come she has such a prominent chest? She's petite, so her chest seemed larger in comparison, Darlene corrected. Let's get that gas, Gary urged. Fine, Darlene responded reluctantly. Amidst their argument, Charlotte endured her father's furious monologue. Since his stroke, John's language had become increasingly crude, and he didn't shy away from using derogatory and harmful words to describe those around him. When was the last time you looked in the mirror? JN questioned. Fat pig, that face looks like it was dead and saved with an ice pick, John went on. Dad, Charlotte exclaimed, deeply hurt. Turning 40, so what? Women hit 40 every day, John grumbled. But not all betray their family at 40. John gestured towards legal documents on the coffee table. Just then, Samson entered the room. You'll need a lawyer and I have to clean that cat litter box, John snapped. Good Lord, I don't know what that animal eats, but it stinks to high heaven, JN muttered. You're back in your old room, John said tersely. I hope betraying us was worth it. Do you hear me? I hope it was. 40 years old and still making foolish choices. Later that night, lying in her childhood bed, Charlotte gazed at the wallpaper she and her mother had chosen when she was 8. Samson remained still as Charlotte switched off the light, staring into the darkness. The week of her 40th birthday had begun on a high note. The flight to Vegas was smooth. Charlotte recalled watching the city lights emerge below. After checking into their hotel, Charlotte and Darlene tried their luck at the roulette table before opting for dinner. Charlotte felt humiliated when a waiter informed her that her credit card was declined. The second met the same fate. The manager brought out her third card with a stern expression. Charlotte tried her debit card, which thankfully went through. Upon checking her bank, she discovered her balance had been halved. Both she and Darlene blamed Ronnie Jackson, feeling he had overstepped, way overstepped. Come on, Darlene, Darlene urged. We're in Vegas. We can't let this setback spoil our fun, right? However, watching Darlene lose $300 at the blackjack table dimmed the evening's excitement a bit. That was Charlotte's $300, Darlene muttered. Charlotte struck up a conversation with a handsome young man at a bar, 25-year-old David Daltrey, and they headed to her room. It was a brief 4 minutes, Charlotte. Darlene quipped. Charlotte caught David attempting to snatch her wallet from her purse. Darlene lamented her $100 daily limit. Lady Luck wasn't on Darlene's side this trip, Charlotte joked. Darlene's $100 seemed to vanish as soon as she left the hotel room. On Tuesday evening, my birthday, I approached another young man, Charlotte remembered. He smirked and said, Lady, if I wanted closeness with a 300 lb woman, I'd be home with my wife. He then suggested a blind convention nearby, mocking my appearance. Feeling hurt, Charlotte took the elevator to their room. Seeing the Do Not Disturb sign, she groaned and spent hours in the lobby coffee shop. Eventually, she messaged Darlene about returning. Back in her room after a shower, Charlotte wore hot lingerie and lay in bed staring at the ceiling. She noticed Ronnie hadn't called or texted for her birthday. Tracy didn't call either but sent a birthday text. Checking her phone, Charlotte felt the sting of her husband's neglect, yet she appreciated birthday wishes from Dennis, Brian, and Paul. The next morning, Darlene grumbled about the budget, hinting she paid for their flight and hotel. By Saturday, Charlotte contemplated ending her relationship with Darlene due to her constant complaints. But with Darlene holding their airline tickets, Charlotte stayed quiet. Now, in her childhood room, Charlotte sighed deeply. Her birthday month was far from a celebration. Jim Earls, recommended by Freddie Baxter from the Garland County Public Library, reviewed the papers from Penny Barnes's office. He then delivered a blunt assessment. He gets half, you get half. The house must be sold with profits split evenly. Expenses are shared. Despite his unemployment, he isn't seeking child support, Jim stated. But I don't want a divorce, Charlotte protested. I don't want to lose my home. I don't want to be Miss Jackson. It doesn't change the facts, Jim responded. One person wants a divorce, and that can lead to it. Can we get a consultation? Charlotte asked. We can request one, Jim confirmed, and Charlotte smiled. I'll call Penny's office. Listening to Jim, Charlotte glanced at his book titles, hearing mostly uh-huh and hmm from him. "All right, Mrs. Jackson, here's the issue," Jim stated, setting his phone on the table. "I'm paying you to avoid issues," Charlotte responded, gripping her purse firmly. "Miss Barnes doesn't know where her client is. Your husband came, settled her fee, and departed," Jim relayed. "She only possesses his email address. Is that essential?" "It's her sole means to reach him, and no, she won't disclose the email. It's protected by attorney-client privilege," Jim clarified. "Oh," Charlotte murmured, settling back in her chair. "Ronnie informed Miss Barnes that henceforth your daughter will cover her tuition and dorm costs," Jim added. He mentioned something about initiating new traditions. "Do you grasp what he's implying?" Charlotte inquired. "No," Charlotte whispered, "but I suspect Tracy might." Charlotte bypassed her 41st birthday, dressing for work and leaving her room. John remained absorbed, hands limp on his lap when his daughter planted a kiss on his cheek. "Anything you need before I head out?" Charlotte queried. "No," John mumbled. "All right, I'll depart. Take care of Samson, all right?" Charlotte endeavored to inject cheer into her voice. "Everything's fine. My two main guys will be good. Got it?" John responded, his words interspersed with grunts and barks. Charlotte commuted to work, following her familiar route from her dad's residence to the library. Her phone buzzed, but she waited until parking to check. "Happy birthday" flashed on her screen. "Thanks, Tracy," Charlotte responded flatly. "Thrilled for my birthday, just brimming with joy." Still, she acknowledged Tracy's greeting. Despite shedding 25 lbs since turning 40, Charlotte's transformation went unnoticed. She felt overlooked since Ronnie's departure. Shortly after Ronnie exited, Charlotte discerned the nature of Darlene and Gary's open marriage. Financial constraints bound them, leading to a loveless coexistence in a trailer as mere roommates. Darlene and Gary lacked affectionate gestures. Charlotte recalled Ronnie's warmth and kisses, especially after she cooked him a meal. However, after announcing her solo Vegas trip for her 40th, Ronnie's affection waned. Their last encounter ended with Ronnie evading her kiss. An hour post Tracy's text, Charlotte's phone rang, reading a message from her boss, questioning her tardiness. She disembarked from her car, dazed, and approached her workplace's rear entrance. Tracy received a thank you text from her mom for the birthday wishes, followed by a picture of a brown-haired little girl gazing back at her. Annette Barbara Jackson, weighing 6 lbs 4 ounces and measuring 17 inches, checked a text from her father's phone. Tracy found it ironic that her mom and younger sister shared a birthday. She doubted her mom would see the humor, or if her dad even remembered. "Is this Shannon?" Tracy wondered. "Or Becky McMahon here," a brunette stated over the phone. "We offer carpets, tiles, hardwoods, and laminate flooring." "Hey, Shorty," a voice teased on the line. "Pardon me?" Ronnie Jackson told a couple, choosing hardwood floor colors. He signaled Bobby to assist them and picked up the call. The man nodded and approached the couple. Ronnie moved to the wall phone and answered the blinking line, scanning the trading floor. He listened attentively. He awaited news from Samuel D. about securing an exclusive flooring contract for the developer's projects. "Listening, Shorty?" Ronnie greeted. "Guess what, Mr. Shorty?" Shannon's voice teased. "Looks like you and your 7 inches are making me a mom again." "Again?" "Shannon? Really?" Ronnie exclaimed in surprise. "Tony's still in diapers and—" "We're expecting another," Shannon giggled on the other end. "Where are you?" Ronnie asked. "Just left Dr. Pritz," Shannon replied. "Hurry over," Ronnie urged. "We're celebrating at the Stone Grill." "All this talk about my figure is why we're in this situation," Shannon chuckled, pushing Tony's stroller from Alliance Square Medical Center into the Texas heat. At 4 feet 8 inches, she brushed her hair back and scanned her surroundings, always cautious due to her height. She faced the sun and smiled. When Ronnie told Shannon Carlisle he was leaving the gas station, she questioned his destination. Ronnie paused. "Why?" he asked. "So I can forward my last paycheck," Shannon quipped, stepping off her milk crate. "Heading somewhere warm. I'm already snowed in," Shannon teased. "What's a stunning girl like you doing with an old guy like me?" Ronnie teased. "Ready to banter back?" Shannon replied. "About 7 inches." Closing her eyes, she asked, "What color are my eyes?" "Dark brown," Ronnie answered. "I have a dimple on which side?" she queried, opening her eyes. "Left," he responded. "And when you smile, your right front tooth peeks out slightly crooked," he added. "Why say goodbye?" Shannon questioned, moving from the counter. "Paulie, I'm leaving," Ronnie said as Paulie, hauling his 312 lbs, exited the warehouse. "Sure," Shannon grinned, taking Ronnie's hand. "Paulie, I'm out," Ronnie called out. 2 hours left, Paulie protested. "Feeling sick," Shannon claimed. "Goodbye." "Ever been to Texas?" Outside a Lion Square Medical Center, Shannon whispered, "Ronnie, I love you."
Story 2.
I caught my wife cheating in our bed, so I took the house, full custody of the kids, and her job. My wife is 41 years old and her name is Grace. I'm 43, and I've been married to her for 15 years. That marriage has given us 2 absolutely beautiful children. Our daughter is 13 and our son is 9. Whether we've been good spouses to one another is one thing, but I know that we've been good parents to our children. And I have personally always done my best to make sure my kids are happy. I have to tell you something that happened after the birth of our son. When he was just a few months old, my wife was going through a really tough time, and it seemed to be postpartum depression. So, I was doing absolutely everything I could to take the load off of her. One day she told me that she wanted to go out to just breathe, and I totally understood that she needed a complete break, at least for a day. So, I told her I had everything under control and let her take off for a day just to herself. I mean, that's what a good husband would do, right? And it was my kid too. Now, the problem came when she got back home. It was very clear that Grace was sad about something. Yes, she might have been going through depression at that time, but she looked visibly down that night. And it all made sense when the children were asleep and she started crying almost right away. I remember being very confused, but I assumed that her emotions had finally started to overflow. But then she spoke, and I remember the exact words she said. "It's hard to forget things like this. I slept with somebody." The living room was dead quiet after she said that. Considering that we had just had a child, my wife was going through postpartum depression, and that bad news had been sprung on me late at night with no preparation. I remember being completely confused about how I was meant to react. Was I supposed to start shouting or flip a table? I had never been an aggressive person, even in moments when it was warranted. The whole night was weird because it took me 10 minutes of us sitting there before I could break the silence. I asked her who it was. She left a big pause before admitting it was just some random guy. I was tempted to ask exactly what they had done, but I didn't want to do that to my mental health. She volunteered more, saying she went to a bar, he hit on her, and she got carried away. Then she let the sentence end in silence. We sat there for another 10 minutes before I told her she should get some sleep. She went upstairs and I slept on the couch that night. That was the last time we ever spoke about it. I don't know why. I really can't explain why I didn't go back to the cheating after that point. I think I felt like everything was so happy with a new kid, and what I felt was a model family. Maybe I made excuses for her because of her PPD. Was that the wrong thing to do? Should I have berated her like any other cheater regardless of what she was going through? I don't know, and I know a lot of you will judge me for sticking with her after that, but it's one of those situations you'll never know how to handle unless you're in it. I even gave her credit for coming out with it right away. It was a sign of remorse, so I just let the whole episode slide. We never spoke about it again for nearly a decade after it happened, until this year. Some needed context is that I'm a busy guy. I have my own business, and after reading some books years ago, I became big on properly structuring my days for productivity. So most of the time, except on rare occasions, it's pretty easy to tell when I'll be at work, when I'll be eating lunch, when I'll be working out, and so on. It's a great system for me, and ever since embarking on it a few years ago, I felt so much more productive. But I'm not here to advertise anything to you guys. The main point is that I have very predictable days. So, if you're close to me, you know exactly where I'll be and at what times, again, except for rare occasions. One day, not too long ago, it was a Tuesday, so I was supposed to be at work from 10 a.m. to 6 p.m., before hitting the gym and returning home. The day started out the way it was supposed to, and I went out by 10 a.m. Everything was going as usual. I think it was around 2:30 p.m. when I got a call from one of my neighbors. His name is Steve. We were pretty friendly, but he rarely called me because most of our interactions were in person. I picked up the call and we exchanged the usual greetings, made some small talk, but it seemed like he had something to say. So I asked him why he called. I might be very, very off. I mean, maybe I'm being paranoid on your behalf, but I've noticed a black Tacoma parked in your driveway. This might be the third time I've seen it over the last 2 months. But I only just saw the driver today, and it's a man. I don't know. I'm not trying to say anything is going on because I like Grace as much as I like you, but I've seen this car around when you aren't. So, I feel it's better to be safe than sorry. I'm sorry if I'm being in a hole and if you'll hate me because I'm essentially accusing your wife of something, but I'd want you to do this for me if you saw the same. When he finished talking, my heart was already beating pretty fast because it zipped my memory right back to what had happened all those years ago. My wife wasn't an angel, I knew that, but I felt like it was truly a mistake she had made back then. Steve could be very off about the situation. It could be a plumber or some other kind of handyman. I was trying to reassure myself, but I knew I had to show up, no matter what. I needed closure. So, I told my workers I'd be taking off for a bit. They were surprised because they know my routine, but they didn't ask any questions. I got in my car and headed home. If what Steve was saying was true, I couldn't announce my presence. So, as I got to my neighborhood, I parked way down the street and decided to head to the house on foot. I got to my house in a few minutes and carefully unlocked the door. The moment I stepped in, I was greeted by the scent of an unfamiliar perfume. It was clearly masculine. I headed up the staircase, and halfway up, I saw a loosened tie sitting on the upper landing. When I got upstairs, 2 shoes were tossed aside in front of the door, and then I could hear it. I could hear the bed creaking from inside the room, and I could hear their sounds. They thought they were alone, so the door was wide open, but they couldn't see me from where I was. I remember standing there and really contemplating what I was going to do when I entered the bedroom. In fact, I remember thinking that I could walk back downstairs without either of them knowing I was there. But I kept thinking, this is our house. This was not the first time my wife had cheated on me. She was sleeping with someone in our bed, a bed I would have slept in happily just hours later. I walked right into the room, and they jolted in fear. My wife immediately pulled the covers up to hide her body and face, and the guy with her seemed incredibly confused. I wasn't convinced that he didn't know he had been sleeping with a married woman all this time. He was only shocked that I was around when she had probably guaranteed him I wouldn't show up. He started putting his clothes on, and my wife just hid beneath the covers as I stood in the doorway. I really didn't know what to do. Like, what exactly is the appropriate reaction when you find your wife sleeping with another man in your matrimonial bed? Well, I figured out what my body thought was the appropriate reaction. The man, now with his pants on and trying to button up his shirt, walked toward the door to leave the room, and I slugged him. I didn't even think about it before I did it. I just gave him a solid hook to the jaw, and he fell back onto the bed. My wife yelped when she felt the impact. The guy rubbed his chin and touched his busted lip to look at the blood, and he stood up again. This time, I let him pass, and I heard his car start up a minute later. I should have done more than just that, but 1, I could have killed him with the way I felt. And 2, I didn't want to waste all my energy on him when my wife was the one with the burden of faithfulness. I felt so gosh darn stupid. I had really let this woman cheat on me, twice, or at least twice, and this second guy was a recurring thing. I should have cut her off when I had the chance, new baby or not. I ripped the covers off her so I could see her face and her naked body. At that moment, I was disgusted by everything about her. Someone was just in her, and I think I didn't go this deep in thought the first time she cheated on me, because if I had, I know I never would have touched her again. But here, I just saw a guy get off of her. They were just going at it a few minutes ago. Look at me! I barked at her because she was still covering her face like a schoolgirl, and I think the aggression with which I said it made her instantly obey. Once she made eye contact with me, all I said was, "This is over. I want a divorce, and I'm going to make sure you regret taking me for a fool." Then I walked out. I left my wife there, got into my car, and went back to work. I don't know why I returned to work, but I think I needed something to get my mind off of things. By the time I was done at night, I just went to a hotel with a bottle of scotch and drank so I wouldn't have to think about anything. I've already reached out to a divorce lawyer. That was a no-brainer, and I've paid a retainer. I'm going to fight tooth and nail to make sure I get custody of my children. But beyond that, I want to cause her pain, and I'm trying to figure out how. I honestly can't be taken for a fool like this. Especially because I already made myself a fool by letting her cheating butt get away with things once before. I guess it's true what they say, once a cheater, always a cheater. Anyway, I'd love to hear your thoughts and hopefully advice on the approach I can take next. Edit, I saw a lot of suggestions saying that I should aim for her job, and that's a good suggestion, but I'm unsure of what angle I can take to get her fired. That one might be a tough ask, but I'll think more on it. Just for context, she works at a law firm, in case anyone has suggestions for me. Edit 2, I saw a suggestion about getting her in trouble by deleting important files she has access to or leaking confidential info. Thankfully for me, I do know a few of her passwords after being together for so long, so this might actually be practical. I'll see what I can do, but for now, I've got to go. Until the next update, I suppose. Well, looks like someone's taking the phrase, "till death do us part," a little too literally, huh? If you wanted a third wheel in your marriage, you could have just bought a tricycle. Postpartum depression? More like postpartum indiscretion. And let's just talk about why you stuck around for so long. Maybe it was just that stubborn thing called love. You know, that irrational force that makes us stick around even when we should be running for the hills. Love can be blinding, like wearing rose-tinted glasses in a room full of red flags. And then there's revenge, deleting files, leaking confidential info. It's like a legal drama, but with a lot less drama and a lot more paperwork and creaky beds. Who knows, maybe after all this, you'll finally get the closure you've been looking for and a hefty settlement to boot. Update 1. I'm really happy as I'm writing this update because the divorce proceedings have finally concluded between me and my ex-wife, Grace. Hopefully, you all remembered the story well enough. It was a pretty messy journey, so let me tell you guys everything. And how it went down. After I caught my wife cheating in our bed, I went to sleep in a hotel, and I was there for about 5 days because I was totally unsure about how to go about things after that. I showed up at the house to see my kids and made up a dumb excuse as to why I might not be around every day, which broke my heart. I went to my brother's place after that, which wasn't too far. I had to tell my workers I wasn't feeling great, and I didn't show up until the next week. However, it was during that time that I had gotten a lawyer, and he started the necessary paperwork for me. He told me that things would probably be tough, especially since my wife worked at a law firm, but he was the best in the state, according to him, so I felt confident. My wife got served at work, which made me glad because it must have caused a bit of embarrassment. But that was just the start of things. An important piece of the puzzle came together one day when I came home to see the kids. Tell me why my son told me about the time he was sick and took 2 days off from school, which I recall and just randomly mentioned. Mom's friend. As soon as he said that, I started recording the audio. Apparently, Mom's friend drove a big black car, and she came around one of those days he was at home. This literally happened about a week before I caught her. Honestly, I was furious, but I had to keep my cool around the kids because this meant Grace was fornicating even with the kids in the house. Bringing random men around my children. If it was my daughter sick at home, would that have changed anything? Was her affair that important that she didn't have the decency to keep her bad behavior away from my kids? Everything I found out went straight to my lawyer, and he seemed a lot happier than I was with the new development because he seemed to see an angle that things could work from. He also asked for bank statements. We had a joint account, so he could try and find any evidence of her using our funds on her affair. Admittedly, the guy was doing a great job, and I felt confident in him. The whole divorce saga was extremely long, tiring, and expensive, and I don't ever want to have to go through anything like that again. It was so sad to see myself having to fight for custody of my children from a cheating hoe. Honestly, it went on for several months, and every time I remembered I was about to split my children's home, I had second thoughts. But I realized that the unhappiness would be evident between their mother and me, and it wasn't worth them growing up in that kind of household anyway. To cut the whole thing short, I was very happy with what was awarded at the very end of the day. I have to pay alimony. It's not going to kill me, but I have to pay some nonetheless. However, I don't care about that part because I got sole physical custody of the kids. It was messy getting to that point, but there was a good argument made about her endangering the kids by bringing strange men to the house. Who knows how many more entered the residence that we're not fortunate enough to know about, said my lawyer. Legal custody is shared, but I'm fine with that. She's still their mom after all, as much as I might now hate her guts. Another good piece of the pie, along with custody of the children, I naturally got the house. Why uproot the kids from where they live, go to school and have friends? Can't have 3 people leave the house on behalf of a cheater after all. That was all a very major win for me, and I'm glad I was able to get this much from the situation. But I don't think I'm done. I couldn't engage in any other plots because the divorce was taking up all my time, but now that it's done, who knows? I might have another update for you all in the future. We'll see. Well, looks like someone hit the jackpot in the divorce lottery. I mean, catching your wife cheating in your own bed is one thing, but finding out she's turning your home into a revolving door for extracurricular activities? That's a whole new level of audacity. It's like she thought your house was some kind of Airbnb for her love affairs, especially with your kids in the house. Yuck. Update 2, it's me, back again months after my last update. I'm sorry for being so tardy, but revenge takes time, and I'm happy to say that this should be the final update. Now, let me cut to the chase. What I wanted to take last was my ex-wife's job. I really wanted to go after her affair partner, but I had no idea what his name was or where I could find him, so I let it go. At least I got to slug him though, which made me feel very good. In retrospect, I think this was recommended in the comments of my original post way back whenever. But I took one of the suggestions that was made there. About a month after the divorce, I was able to get into my ex-wife's Google Drive because she was still using the same password that I knew. I did this at night with a VPN active since I already knew I was up to no good. I knew that I should have stopped with my win in the divorce, but something made me have to get back at her in full. Anyway, I spotted the files she had been working on last and downloaded a bunch of them that seemed confidential. Then I deleted them. Yes, I do recognize that what I was doing was illegal, but honestly, I couldn't care less. Like I said, she works at a law firm, not the biggest one in the world or anything, but sizable for where we live. I wasn't too scared of them, especially after they weren't much of a threat during the divorce. The files I took were all I needed, and I gave it about a week before I did anything with them. This is where things got fun. I had a friend in another country who knew all about the divorce and the cheating, and he was entirely on my side through the whole thing. We've been friends for a long time, so I had him sign up for a new email account. I sent him the confidential files through a separate platform, and all I told him to do was send those files to the law firm's email address with some cryptic message about how a certain Grace had left herself open and those confidential files had been posted to the dark web. They hadn't, but it made the whole thing seem more nefarious. After this point, he told me he never got a reply from the law firm, and I wasn't surprised. In fact, I didn't hear much about the situation until Grace called me about 2 weeks after, asking whether she could get her alimony early. I asked why, and all she said was, "Just trouble at work, that's all you need to know." There was an edge to her voice that normally would have pissed me off, but in this case, my goodness, was it sweet to hear. It was only about a month after that when she ranted to me about how she had been let go because of some kind of security breach at work that wasn't her fault. I had to mute the call to laugh at how everything worked out for me. At the end of the day, I got the kids, I got the house, and I got her job. Not that I needed it for anything but my own satisfaction. I hope I never get found out, and I probably won't because I doubt they'll deem it big enough to warrant investigation. She was never a big shot at work. The moral of my story is that sometimes being the bigger person is not the most satisfying way for things to go. So, if you ever get the chance to get some sweet, sweet revenge, take it. It's not going to fix your ex-wife sleeping with someone else, but it'll certainly make you feel better than alcohol can. Boy, did you deliver, Ope, hacking into her Google Drive like a digital ninja. Classic move. It's like Ocean's 11, but with less George Clooney and more spite. And deleting those confidential files? Talk about a power move. Who needs a lawyer when you've got a keyboard and a vendetta? And roping in your international friend for some cyber espionage? Genius. It's like you're playing a real-life game of Risk. Except instead of world domination, you're aiming for workplace humiliation. May your ex-wife's downfall be a cautionary tale for cheaters everywhere. Cheers to sweet, sweet satisfaction, Ope. What do you make of this? Let us know your thoughts in the comments below.
Story 3.
Hey, I've been quietly observing here for a bit, dealing with the whole cheating thing in my life. My wife and I have been married for 8 years, a bit longer if you count the time we've been together, and we have 2 young kids. This year has been rough, with some arguments, but nothing I thought would lead my wife to cheat. Recently, I noticed her being distant and uncommunicative, so I confronted her one evening. She admitted she wasn't happy and felt no spark. Initially, I blamed myself for not being attentive, which was true. The next day, I found a really lovey-dovey message on her phone. I discovered she'd been messaging a guy for a long time with lots of "I love yous" and plans for a future together. It hit me hard. Following advice from various threads, I didn't confront immediately. I read a lot, consulted a couple of lawyers, one on retainer now, got my head straight, and stayed calm. A couple of days ago, I calmly confronted my wife and asked if she was having an affair. After a few minutes, she admitted everything. Long story short, it's been going on for 6 months and she claims it's the deepest emotional connection ever. Complete BS. Anyway, I set boundaries, cut off contact, suggested marriage counseling, and more. The breaking point came when she resisted cutting off contact. Even when I asked her to do it in front of me and insisted on seeing him one last time, I stood my ground and told her if he's so important, pack a bag and go live with him. She backed off, calling me a controlling yank. She sent a text this morning, but I suspect she'll try a different means of communication. I don't see much hope, and I honestly don't want it at this point. I just want to be able to tell my kids in 20 years that I tried. We have marriage counseling tomorrow, but I'm leaning toward filing before wasting more time. I'm cautious due to my kids, but is this the right move? I have the paperwork filled out with my lawyer. They just need to process it, and I'll pick a date to have her served. Going the doormat route won't end well. I need to think about my future, my kids, and move on. Update. The past few weeks have been really tough, but they've given me time to think and reflect. My wife and I went to counseling after our first big talk, and I must say, the counselor was great at listening to both of us without blaming anyone. She helped us navigate our new reality and pointed out some issues in our relationship. While it doesn't excuse my wife's behavior, it's good to know for the future to avoid making the same mistakes. As mentioned, my wife didn't seem to follow my request to cut off contact with the affair partner. I noticed some messages before she went completely silent. After seeing that, I decided to file for divorce, and she was served a few days ago. At the same time, I had a heart-to-heart with my father-in-law, who I'm really close to, prioritizing support for our kids over our relationship. It seemed like my wife wanted to ignore the issue. Naturally, my wife was really upset at first. Her fantasy was shattered, but our therapist talked through why this needed to happen from my perspective. I think she's starting to realize the consequences of her actions and the real things that will be lost. I'm just trying to process the new life ahead and the big change in my identity from being a husband and father to something else. Similarly, since I filed, my wife was shocked, and she's been very emotional these past few days. I honestly think she never expected me to walk away. I've kept my distance, but I've seen a noticeable change in her. On a positive note, we've talked more, kept our conversations civil, and focused on our shared priorities, especially our children. I've made it clear that she caused a huge wound, and she needs to do the heavy lifting to help repair it and give me space and time. If I can ever start to forgive, I'll say it again and again. Her actions are the most selfish, self-centered, and horrible things you could do to a person. But I haven't lost sight of the fact that we still need to raise our children. That's my main focus as I figure out how to move forward to the next phase of my personal happiness. I'm honestly proud that I found the strength not to dwell in self-pity, anger, or sadness, and to make the right moves to keep my dignity and look forward to a brighter future. I don't know all the next steps, and my feelings are constantly changing, but I'm starting to feel some inner peace. I'm in the post-serving phase and working closely with my counsel. What I'm wondering is if any betrayed spouses here took advantage of the affair fog to get better divorce terms and how they managed it. My soon-to-be ex-wife is clearly deep in the fog, still contacting the affair partner, and at the moment, I haven't bothered her about it. Update. My wife cheated, forming a stronger emotional connection with someone else. We still love each other, but aren't in love anymore. I filed for divorce, and it's been about a month and a half since everything came to light. I'm working hard to move forward. The process is ongoing, and I'll share updates when the time is right, probably in a while. If you've been through this, I'd appreciate any advice, lessons learned, or things you wish you had known. Just reaching out in case there's more helpful information. I filed for divorce, and things are moving in that direction. I'd like to hear how others dealt with in-laws and friends, especially when they try to make you look like the bad guy. After filing, I informed some in-laws, my family, and a few friends, but I didn't make it widely known to keep some things private. However, it seems my soon-to-be ex-wife has shared her side, and I'm getting cold vibes from her family and others. It's tough when close family turns their backs, even though I've been a good dad and my wife has acted immorally. Did people eventually see the truth and change their opinions, or did they just move on? While it's natural for people to take sides, those who believe her probably weren't loyal to you anyway. You don't need people like that. Focus on your kids and your side of the story. At the end of the day, you know what happened, and that's what matters. Update. Today brings some closure to the saga that began last summer, during which I sought advice from everyone here. Going through this process is tough, especially when close family is far away. It's challenging to be alone with your thoughts, but there's wisdom and introspection to gain. To recap, my wife cheated, and I found out, realizing there was no hope, as she was deeply involved with the affair partner. I filed for divorce immediately. The past few months have been frosty but relatively drama-free as my soon-to-be ex and I separated our lives in the house while still co-parenting. The discovery and mediation process moved quickly. We agreed on 50 custody for our kids along with schedules and holidays. Asset division in our no-fault state followed the book with some give and take. The final conclusion is on the horizon, and for the most part, the divorce is complete. As for advice from this fiasco, I learned several things. First, don't bother with the pick-me dance. I tried for a week before realizing her decision to cheat was hers to live with. Second, hire an experienced family law attorney who is reasonable. The person who helped me was crucial in reaching a resolution without crazy fees. Third, lean on friends and family for support as much as possible. Fourth, prioritize regular exercise to maintain mental health. I started hitting the weights a month after D-Day and am starting to see the benefits. The confidence gained has been helpful to get through the process. Fifth, engage in individual counseling and talk with someone. This has been tremendously helpful. Sixth, realize that the cheater's decisions are their own. No matter the excuses, it's on them. I heard it all from my soon-to-be ex, but I now know our marriage went wrong after she invited someone into her life who fed her lines, stroked her ego, and gave her extra attention. She had to make me the bad guy to justify her actions in her mind. While stress may have played a role, not communicating with her husband and confiding in a 2-time divorced cheater with no moral compass is entirely her responsibility and a recipe for disaster. The final chapter of this saga is yet to be written, but poor choices carry consequences. That's all I'll say on the matter. Update. I'm not too far from moving into my own place because of my kids with my soon-to-be ex and legal reasons. I've stayed in our marital house during this process, and I've shared updates in a couple of other threads. Thankfully, the end of the tunnel is near for me. Even though I'll have to co-parent with my cheating ex, I've made it clear that she ended our marriage and any chance of friendship. I don't have room in my life for a dishonest cheater. Despite her insistence on being there for me and helping with my new house, I've firmly stated that she ruined our relationship, and I'm simply giving her what she wanted, to replace me. I've even told her she won't be welcome in my house. Has anyone else dealt with an ex wanting to stick around? I guess it's some sort of appearance thing, trying to make the split seem less bad if we're friends. So far, her fair partner hasn't shown up, and she tries to hide it. But I know it's only a matter of time before their supposed deep emotional connection takes them elsewhere. I have no desire to be in the same room with them, but I'll watch from a safe distance when it all falls apart. Today, the official decree came, and I'm no longer married. I got the keys to my new house and will start moving soon. I chose a buyout to start fresh and got lucky finding a well-kept house a minute from my current home. It has a huge backyard, wood fire pit, big garage, and a prime location. I back up to a nature preserve, perfect for my outdoor hobbies. It's my own little paradise. Some may wonder why I chose to stay so close. Well, I want to be near my kids so they know their dad is close when they need me. Following the community's advice, I focused on what's important, started working out, and embraced a new career opportunity that's paying off. I haven't bothered with online dating or looking for a new partner and plan to enjoy the single life for a while. My focus is on my 2 kids and personal growth. As for my ex and her affair partner, I'm starting to let go of that disaster. Whatever happens is no longer my concern. As someone wisely said, when someone gets with a cheater, they're getting someone who cheated. I did my best as a husband and father, and it's time for someone else to appreciate it. Update. That said, in my new free time, unfortunately, I've reflected and seen the life I had planned disappear. I wonder, how could this happen so quickly? I'm sure everyone has had time to ponder the who, what, where, when, why. But when I look back, my spouse and I had a great life ahead. Our careers were doing well after some initial major efforts to establish ourselves. We had a paid-off home, 2 beautiful kids out of diapers, and college funds for them, among many other things going for us. Thinking about this is my final challenge to overcome, but I can't grasp the mindset of someone who had so much, but decided to destroy it all and go all in on unreliable serial cheating. Do I need to mention OMB one more time to this group? I know I'll struggle for a while to heal from all this, but when I look at our history and lives together, I just wonder how a person can be so selfish and stupid. I understand desire can't be negotiated and all that jazz, but the whole point of being married is to work together as a team and continuously fall back in love with each other. Update. Wanted to give a quick update, especially for those folks who just went through their D-Day and are worried about what life may be like. It's been 6 weeks post-decree and I moved into my new place a month ago. I've been working like crazy to set it up as my sanctuary, and now it's well furnished and feels like home. My home. My kids have visited many times, and the rotation is working well. People say kids are resilient, and now that I've seen it firsthand, it's reassuring. I'm happy to report that they're handling things pretty well. We have our own fun at Dad's house, and they've told me many times they love being over. As for me, it was initially weird having newfound freedom, but making to-do lists and setting daily, weekly, and long-term goals is helping a lot. I was initially sad, but keeping busy keeps those feelings away. Right now, I'm solely focused on self-improvement. While I've thought about putting myself back on the scene, truthfully I have no interest. So I'm keeping my focus on home improvement, fitness, and my kids. Regarding the cheating ex, I keep it cordial, and that's it. No sign of the supposed deep emotional connection affair partner yet. What the heck? But who cares? Tonight, I sat outside, had a few beers and a cigar, and enjoyed the peace and tranquility of my property. I thought about getting away from the situation my ex put me in, and it feels like the right thing to do for those at the beginning and doubting leaving. I get it. It's the toughest thing, and heartbreak is a kick in the junk. But deciding to eject a cheater was the only right decision, and I believe with time, it will get better. Update. Now into the second month of being on my own, and my house is coming together nicely. My kids are doing well, making memories, and I have some fun trips planned. Following the usual advice, I've stepped up my weight training and dieting, upgraded my home gym, and regularly hit the heavy bag. It seems to be working. In my monthly therapy sessions, my counselor noticed positive changes in my weight distribution and mentioned great progress mentally and physically. A little affirmation that things are heading in the right direction. I haven't bothered with dating. At this point, it's early, and I'm enjoying my free time, new projects, and spending time with friends. So, to the main point of the post, and I'm sure everyone wonders, has bad luck struck bad people? I don't have the satisfying post detailing the downfall of OMB or the ex-wife just yet. However, it's radio silence as the supposed greatest romance ever hasn't been revealed, and OMB remains a secret. I wonder why this could be. Is my ex-wife managing her image and waiting for a better time to reveal everything? But isn't the thrill of the affair gone now that they can't sneak around? I'm no longer around, so I find it odd. I suspect they are still communicating. She makes it obvious by hiding her phone when I'm present during kids' activities. But why? You wanted this, sneaked around, claimed it was amazing. Why not broadcast it now that the horrible ex-husband is gone? Has this happened to anyone else with their ex and affair partner? Update. I'm nearing the 6-month mark post-divorce and almost a year past D-Day. I hope to keep offering assistance in any small way to those in need. I deeply appreciate the support I've received and would love to return the favor. On that note, 6 months post-D-Day, there's a lot of positive news. My house feels like a home, my kids are comfortable and enjoy coming over, and they've made some neighborhood friends. I'm extremely thankful that the little ones have handled this process so well, understanding the balance between dad time and mom time without any complaints or tears while they're here. I've immersed myself in numerous home improvements. The house I moved into had some neglect from the previous owner, but I see it as an opportunity to make it my own. Additionally, I've set up a home gym with everything I need, managing to work out and box 4 times a week, bringing my body back to where it needs to be. Throughout this ordeal, I also underwent a significant internal career change at my workplace, and surprisingly received praise instead of making any mistakes. I've kept my situation private, received a raise, and gained exposure to move my career upward. Although I still struggle daily with mental health and focus, I manage it with therapy and workouts, and things are improving. I think of my ex-wife less each day, and each small step forward brings relief. As for her, she's still in La La Land, but we co-parent decently. I firmly keep our conversations strictly about the kids and maintain a cordial relationship. Anyone following my story might wonder about the saga of OMB. All I can say is the world's greatest love story hasn't gone public. But my kids recently informed me he's been around in a small capacity. It's amusing to me that 6 months post-D-Day, they're still sneaking around. These are surely the great hallmarks of a long-lasting, trusting relationship, guaranteed to stand the test of time. I've accepted that whatever will happen, will happen. At this point, I feel fortunate to be away from a person willing to lie to their most trusted partner without remorse. I have a solid chance at building an even better life than before. Good riddance and good luck. Anyways, that is all. Update. Just wanted to share a great conversation I had with my buddy last night over a few beers. It's amazing how Friday night discussions can sometimes solve the world's problems. For context, my buddy went through a divorce 7 years ago, and his situation is surprisingly similar to mine. Even our exes share the same birthday. As I've mentioned in recent posts, the grand reveal of OMB and my ex is slowly unfolding. While I maintain low contact with my ex, my kids make comments, and it's hard not to feel bothered. Anyway, my buddy noticed my frustration and shared something that really helped. Dude, think about their lives. Two cheaters getting together, and consider how lousy and low value that guy is for manipulating a married woman with kids. Now look at it this way. They have to make it work no matter how bad it gets. You or I can meet new people, and if it doesn't work out, we move on without any problem or worry. They're stuck. He has to be in your old house knowing you built that, dealing with your kids and inheriting your selfish ex and in-laws. But they're stuck, or else they look stupid. Can you imagine that kind of hell? But you're free. I pondered on that, and this morning it really helped me gain perspective. What a dreadful future they have to look forward to. Just wanted to share this thought and ask if others have reached a similar conclusion or witnessed it in action. Thanks, as always, to you awesome people. Wow, that makes a lot of sense. Trying to play house in a home that the affair partner never built, a home that he helped to destroy. Update. A friend is invited to my kid's birthday. For those who remember my story, I've got something to share, but right now, I need some advice. Here's the background. My daughter's birthday is this weekend. I already had a small celebration last weekend with my family. Nothing extravagant, just some presents and cake, and my daughter loved it. Now, the ex-wife is throwing her usual look how great I am party this weekend. I did receive an invite, but I just found out the other day that the affair partner OMB will be there. I called out my ex-wife, telling her it was a pretty lousy move, but she didn't respond. To make things worse, the ex-wife's co-workers, family, friends who knew about the affair will also be there. And the party is at my old house, enemy territory. This is terrible overall, especially since it's my daughter's party after our divorce. I can't shake the feeling that it's a setup. It's a lose-lose situation, and after talking to some supportive members here, it feels like stepping into a pit of vipers. The only idea I have is to go in well-dressed, with a fresh haircut, and showcase my new physique. I've been putting in the work and staying positive, but either way, I just don't like this. It feels super manipulative on the part of the ex-wife. She knows exactly how she's playing this and wants me to react in a petty way. Any advice is appreciated. Update. Regarding the exciting update, this one's a good story. Initially, I told my ex-wife that I would be joining the party. What I didn't do was inform her that I'd changed my mind. I waited until Saturday morning to swing by the house and drop off my daughter's card and gift. Unbeknownst to me, the kids were at Grandma and Grandpa's house for the morning. As I drove into the driveway in my sports car, OMB's car was on the side of the road. I quietly strolled into the backyard, surprising both the ex-wife and OMB as they were setting up decorations. The look of utter terror was on both their faces. When I saw them, I didn't feel anger, just a sense of how sad they both are. Good luck together. Is that growth? I kept my composure and said, I'm here to give my daughter her present, but I won't be joining. The ex-wife was shocked, and she practically pleaded for me to join, but I declined politely. I went to your parents' place to give my daughter her gift and parted ways. I even gave a, hey, see you later, bro, to OMB before leaving with my head held high. Not more than 3 minutes later, I got a call from the ex-wife pleading for me to come to the party, but I held my ground and politely refused. Shortly after, I dropped off the gift, spent a few minutes at the ex-in-laws, played with my kids, and said my goodbyes, all very kindly without mentioning the situation. As for me, I kept busy taking care of my house, had a good workout, much needed after a break, and went on a date. It was somewhat of a bust, but she was nice, and at least it was a distraction. My daughter called me today, thanked me for the gift, but didn't ask why I wasn't there. As everyone said, she was so busy she didn't pay attention. There it is. I know if I had gone, it would have set me back for nothing. Instead, she told everyone I'd be there, and with me a no-show and OMB present, people will likely figure out why. Now I can enjoy my weekend without feeling mentally exhausted and do some fun things. Update. I'm still grinning about the little maneuver I pulled last week. Things have been going well for me since then. Anyway, here's a bit of humor for you. Some background since D-Day. As those who have followed my story might recall, my in-laws distanced themselves from me. I understand it. Family comes first. However, one member of my extended family has reached out, and we regularly spend time together. He's genuinely a person of character. I received a text on Saturday during the party. "Hey man, let's grab some beers this week. Your presence is missed here." Fast forward to the other day when we met up, started having beers, and got to the point. He began talking about how awkward the party was with people clearly uncomfortable about the situation. Surprisingly, OMB wasn't introduced to anyone. The ex-wife deliberately kept him apart during the party, directing him on what to do. The in-laws didn't bother talking to him and seemed pretty annoyed, sitting by themselves. He looked like a fish out of water, spending most of the time indoors and avoiding almost everyone. There were also quiet comments among some of the in-laws, aunts, and uncles, saying that the party was lacking in class. I swear I'm moving toward indifference, but I couldn't help but laugh. My absence was well understood, and the fact that I had given an earlier gift to my daughter was known, so it seems like the family had a full understanding of why I wasn't there. Mission accomplished. Anyway, that's my Friday humor.
Story 4.
The course of my life seemed set in stone, a well-defined path with few surprises. I held a stable position as executive editor, a role I was deeply committed to, while my wife, Sophia, excelled as a senior vice president at her publishing firm. Our family life, blessed with 2 grown children, appeared as a picture of success and stability. Everything seemed in order, at least on the surface. Yet, underneath this polished image, cracks had started to form, though I didn't see them at first. What was about to happen would shake everything I believed in and unravel the life I thought I had built. With painful clarity, I was about to discover that the love and loyalty I felt for Sophia were more fragile than I realized, and destined to break. I'm Michael Barron, married to Sophia Dawes Barron. I hold the executive editor position at the Chicago American Globe, while my wife serves as senior VP at Gravely Publishing. Our children are both in college. Our 23-year-old son, Michael Jr., is completing his international diplomacy degree at Princeton, and our daughter Ashley Sophia, 21, attends UC Berkeley. We both make a good income, though she earns a bit more than I do. I thought we were happy, or at least I thought so. We were looking forward to a fun weekend together. Sophia had endured a tough week and was really looking forward to the gala. She had a new dress, black, strapless, backless, a few inches above the knees with a slight slit on the left side. She wore the diamond necklace I gave her for our 25th anniversary, her favorite sapphire earrings, and a replica of Princess Diana's ring. Her blonde hair was elegantly styled in an updo, and she looked breathtaking. I had on my Brooks Brothers tux, which didn't require much fanfare. She stood about 12 feet away, leaning against a fake fireplace, sipping champagne and laughing like a college student. I wasn't bothered by that part. It was the slimy-looking guy talking to her, touching her arm and shoulder, whispering in her ear with a self-satisfied grin that irked me. He had just whispered something, and she nodded in agreement. All right, that's enough. Time to rescue her from this creep. I was about to step in when a gentle hand held my arm. Don't do anything. My wife is getting drawn in by him, and his friends are watching you. I looked down to see a striking brunette at my side. She subtly pointed to a rugged-looking man about 15 feet away, whose attention seemed locked onto me. Then she gestured toward the balcony doors, where another man stood watching the crowd. He's planning to lead her out to the balcony and make a move on her. He'll likely try to get too close, touch her inappropriately. That's his usual approach. If your wife doesn't respond, he'll move on to someone else. He rarely misses his target. No offense, she added. I turned back to see my wife, still smiling, following Mr. Smooth toward the balcony, stepping outside. His 2 associates shut the doors and stationed themselves nearby. Glancing at the woman next to me, who seemed a bit somber as she sipped her whiskey sour, I asked, "Who are you and how do you know all this?" "That was me, 7 years ago," she admitted. Startled, I listened as Lana positioned me to face away from the balcony doors, then began to share her story. "I was here with my husband, supporting a children's charity event, and we were having a good time. We were planning to make a sizable donation. Then he approached me. Before I knew it, he was touching my back, suggesting we step outside. I was drawn in by his charm and followed him out to the balcony. When we got there, he touched my chest and asked if I enjoyed it. I felt both surprised and intrigued. He teased me just enough to leave me breathless, then slid his hand under my dress and into my underwear. He slid in 2 fingers, and I reached my peak right away. Then he made his proposal. He wanted me to spend the weekend with him. We'd share an intimate experience, and then I'd return home. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, never to be repeated. I went back to my husband and told him I'd be leaving for the weekend with this man. He stood by, silently watching as I walked out with him. That's what happened. My husband was devastated. He worked as an accountant. When I came back from the weekend, he couldn't even look at me. I tried to assure him we could get through it, but he couldn't be close to me anymore. We drifted apart. I began seeking casual encounters at night. He became more withdrawn. His work performance suffered, and eventually, he lost his job. One night, I came home and found him in the basement. After that, I spent 7 months in a psychiatric therapy ward. My 3 kids were between 14 and 10. They stopped speaking to me. Someone must have told them what happened. My parents filed for custody. Although I had visitation rights, I didn't really know what they were doing. When they were old enough, they filed for emancipation and cut off all contact with me. Glancing at her watch, she noted, "It took him about 15 minutes to change me. He's been out there about 12, and I..." Then she instructed, "Don't turn around. Don't acknowledge them. Ignore them. If she tries to talk to you, don't look at her. She may say she has something important to share. If she does, respond however you want, and then we'll leave. Together. It'll unsettle him, and it may give her pause. This might be the only satisfaction you get, at least for now. We'll go somewhere to relax and talk. Can you handle that? Stay alert." He heard her footsteps approaching from behind. She placed her hand on his upper left arm and began, "Michael, there's something I need to tell you." I shook her off and snapped over my shoulder. "Stay away from me. You're nothing but trouble. Say what you need to, but if you don't come home tonight, don't bother coming back. We're done, and I'll make sure you regret it. You have more to lose than I do." I gestured to Miss Lana, and we left. "Michael, we need to talk right now." The atmosphere had settled down, and people made way as we moved toward the exit. "How did you get here?" I asked. "Car service." "Allow me, ma'am," I offered. They pulled my Lincoln up to the front, and a young man opened the door. She got in, I tipped him, and got in on my side, and we drove off. "I know a quiet place where we can talk if that works for you." "Perfect, Michael. I could use a drink." We headed to the corral, a relaxed spot with a mostly older crowd. After parking, we found a quiet table in the back and ordered drinks and appetizers. She finished sharing her story, and I told her about Sophia and me. She was a college professor and had faced a major setback in her career when the news got out. I mentioned that I was the executive editor at the Chicago American Globe. I filled her in on my background: 6 years in the Air Force in special operations and nearly 20 years as a reporter and journalist. I also told her about our 2 kids, Michael Jr. and Ashley Sophia, both off at college. "So what's your plan?" "Plan? I can't even wrap my head around my feelings, let alone what actions to take. If she's not there when I get home, it's time for drastic measures. She'll pay, and so will he. Oh, God." And the tears started flowing. She took my hand, her eyes showing a deep empathy, as though the world had crumbled for both of us. I looked at her, realizing that if I wanted, I could find comfort here. But I couldn't. If there was any hope of reconciliation, I couldn't act on it. "Look, I'm sorry, but rebound closeness isn't my thing. I need to go home and face this. Please share your contact details so we can stay in touch, maybe talk through this. And I'll need that guy's name to start planning his downfall." She took my phone, entered her full name, Lana Tooley, along with her phone number and address. "Michael, you're a good man. You didn't deserve this. I hoped for something more, but I respect your choice. Go home and try to work things out. Best of luck." I settled the bill and we headed out. I dropped her off at her townhouse and she went inside. I drove home, and as I entered, I realized Sophia wasn't there. All right, she's made her choice. It was 12:39 a.m. I picked up my cell phone and dialed my best friend, Steve Dawson. He was also my attorney. We'd served together in the Air Force and often joked about how he'd gone on to be a lawyer while I got a respectable job. A groggy voice answered, "Hello, Michael?" "What's going on, Mike? It's almost 1 in the morning. Are you all right?" "No, Steve, it's not all right. I need you here at 10 a.m. tomorrow, ready to get into lawyer mode. And maybe even best friend mode. I'm filing for divorce." Now I had his full attention. I heard his wife in the background. "It's Mike. We've got a problem. You went to that event, right? Sophia met Darren Watson, didn't she?" "Oh man, you had no idea." "Just make sure you're here, Steve, okay? For me." "No problem, I'll be there." I started making a list. I looked up a bonded locksmith and jotted down his contact info. Then I went online and found a site that buys cars for cash if the title is clear. I'd bought her a BMW for our 24th anniversary, and it was in my name. I noted their contact details and packed 2 small overnight bags with essentials, underwear, clothes, and shoes. I left them by the front door and went to bed. At 7 a.m., I woke up, made coffee, and checked my computer for updates from the newsroom. I noticed that Joe Spillane, one of our investigative reporters, was online. I called Joe and asked him to discreetly find everything he could on someone named Darren Watson. "No problem, boss. I'll get right on it." Still no sign of my soon-to-be ex-wife. As it got closer to 10 o'clock, I was feeling lower. I called the car buyer, explaining I had a BMW with a clear title and valid Illinois registration for sale. He asked for the model and quoted a price. "A 2-year-old BMW, huh? How about $2,000? He sounded surprised, almost suspicious. "It's not stolen," I assured him, "but you'll need to pick it up. What's the address?" After I told him, he promised he'd be there in 25 minutes. "Don't sell it to anyone else. I'll be there," he said, hanging up. 10 minutes later, just after I finished with the locksmith, Steve arrived with his paralegal, Dottie. We went inside and I served them coffee and English muffins. About 20 minutes later, Andy from the car service showed up. I showed him the BMW, the registration, and title. He asked if there was anything wrong with it. "No, it's in good shape. I just don't need it anymore. Divorce." "Glad you're not divorcing me," he joked. They had a flatbed tow truck ready, so I signed all the paperwork and Andy paid me before taking the car. I shook his hand and he wished me luck. Still no sign of my unfaithful wife. Back inside, my legal team was hard at work in the dining room. The divorce papers were ready, and they'd also drawn up a restraining order and started on a suit for alienation of affection. Steve asked about the car, and I explained that I'd sold it since I no longer needed it. "You didn't do anything illegal. A bit sneaky, sure, but I like it. Let's get the financial stuff settled online." For the next 45 minutes, we tackled everything. Banks, investment accounts, insurance, cell phones, mortgages, and my pensions. By noon, my wife still hadn't returned, and the locksmith had finished changing all the locks and installed keyless deadbolts on every door. We went to Saltgrass Steakhouse for lunch, where we met Steve's wife, Deirdre, or Dee Dee, as she's called. She gave me a warm hug, showing her support. At the table, Dee Dee watched me, clearly waiting for me to open up. Eventually, I asked, "What?" She wanted to know what happened and what I planned to do next. All I did was trust my wife. She blindsided me, and I'm still processing it. Could it ever be fixed? Absolutely not. She still hasn't come back. And honestly, I'm at a loss. It feels like the only way out might be if she just disappeared entirely. Dee Dee looked at me with understanding, nodding as she said she couldn't imagine why Sophia would do this. After a long conversation, we headed back. I returned home around 6 p.m., still alone and with no sign of my wife. I grabbed a beer and fell asleep in my recliner. The next morning, I woke up at 7 a.m., groggy and sore, and shuffled to the shower. After cleaning up, I did something I hadn't done in years. I went to church. Church offered a bit of peace. I sat quietly in the back, praying for guidance, but it felt like my prayers were met with silence. After Mass, I stayed longer, hoping for some sign, but it seemed I was on my own in this, and that was just how it would be. I drove home, picked up a coffee at a fast food place, and parked my Lincoln in the garage next to my 1980 full-size Bronco. With the changing weather, I'd soon be driving it daily. After locking up the garage, I turned on the TV to watch the Bears-Lions game. But as usual, the Bears lost. It seemed fitting given my luck these days. At 5:30, I got a text from my wife. "On my way. Be home in 20 minutes." With the restraining order taking effect soon, things were about to get intense. 20 minutes later, I heard an unfamiliar car pull into the driveway. Peeking out the window, I saw a fancy European car. Sophia stepped out from the passenger side and leaned in to kiss someone, probably Darren Watson. After he left, she walked up to the house, but her keys didn't work with the new locks. Confused, she noticed the 2 small overnight bags by the door. "What's going on?" she muttered. She rang the bell repeatedly, pounding on the door, and yelled for me to open it. Frustrated, she shouted, "Open the door, Michael!" Finally, I went to the door, facing my furious wife. She glared at me, demanding an explanation. "Simple, Sophia. Your keys don't work because you don't live here anymore. The woman I was married to used to live here, but she's gone now." Her eyes went wide, and she leaned in for a kiss. "But, honey," she began, "don't even try. I have no idea where that mouth has been or who it's been on. How many times did you sleep with him? Or do other things? We didn't just share intimacy, it was special. Oh, spare me. You vanished for 2 full days without a single call. I doubt you even thought of me. Did you keep your wedding rings on while you were with him?" She flinched, stammering. "At least you kept your anniversary jewelry. They were gifts, so they're yours," I said, taking her wedding rings off. "But these are mine. And the engagement ring? That was my grandmother's. Remember when I proposed? You won't be needing these anymore." She began to cry and tremble. "Why are you doing this?" she burst out. "It was just an experience. I had a right to it. You don't own me." She was regaining some confidence. "You need to swallow your pride, Michael. We both need to move on." "You're right, and I'm doing just that. Here, this is for you." I handed her an envelope and she looked at it, confused. "What's this?" she asked. "Money. I sold the BMW. I didn't need it anymore." She looked as though she'd been slapped. "What did you do with my car?" "It wasn't your car. I bought it for you, but it was in my name, so I sold it. I thought giving you the money would be a fair gesture, that's all of it. But there's only," she counted the bills, "$2,000. That car was worth way more. What's going on?" That's all it was worth, much like our marriage after Friday night. I warned you I'd take everything, and you had far more to lose than I did. The shock was clear on her face, and she started protesting again. "How could you be so heartless? I came back to you." Man, I must be lucky, I thought as I noticed her bare right hand. "Where's the Princess D ring, Sophia? The one you had to have. I offered to get a real replica, but you insisted on that knockoff. I got it to make you happy. Where is it, ho?" Her face turned pale. She stuttered, He what, ho?" "He wanted a memento from our weekend," she murmured, avoiding my eyes. "So you not only gave him yourself, but you also gave away the ring you said you treasured." She blushed and nodded. I checked my watch. 6:03 p.m. "Get out, Sophia. We're done." "No, I want to come inside. This is my home." "Not anymore. It isn't." I slammed the door shut and bolted it. Leaning against the heavy oak, tears filled my eyes as the pain finally set in. She continued ringing the bell, pounding on the door, shouting for me to let her in. I dialed 911. 911, what's your emergency? Police, fire, or medical? I have a restraining order against my soon-to-be ex-wife. She's outside, yelling and causing a disturbance. Please send someone quickly. Moments later, he watched as 2 police cars arrived, lights flashing. 4 officers approached his wife while 2 came to his door. He handed them the restraining order, which they verified with the station. Then he provided her copy, requesting they handle things quietly. Meanwhile, his wife received the notice and erupted. The officers calmed her down and she shouted, "Where am I supposed to go?" "Go to hell, Sophia. I couldn't care less." The officers informed her she had to leave and escorted her and her bags to the curb. She used her phone to call an Uber. Apologizing, the officers waited as she instructed the driver to take her to the Peninsula Hotel. She climbed in, and they drove off. At Gravely Publishing, Sophia headed to her office on the 10th floor. Her executive assistant, Jessica, awaited her, noting she was 30 minutes late. Jessica followed her inside. "Is it true?" Jess asked. Sophia turned to face her friend and assistant, alert. "What are you talking about?" "Everyone's talking. You and Michael. The gala on Friday night." Sophia sat down, admitting, "Yes, we went to the gala." "And the rest of the weekend?" "I'm not sure what you mean," Sophia replied. "You left with that guy, the creep, and left Michael there." "Oh my God, Sophia!" Jess slumped into a chair, crying. Sophia was taken aback, staring at her friend. "How did you know?" "I haven't told anyone. Who else knows?" "Everyone knows, you fool. It's all over the company, and it's not even 11 o'clock yet." Sophia's face went pale as she sank into her seat. Just then, her boss, Gwendolyn Harrelson, burst in, looking between the two of them, shocked. "Oh my goodness, it's true!" she exclaimed. Sophia was stunned by her boss's reaction. Things were spiraling out of control. Defensively, Sophia said, "I think this is being blown way out of proportion." "Oh, really?" Gwen replied with a smirk. "Do you even know who he is? How do you think the whole city, maybe half the Midwest, already knows?" Sophia turned pale, staring at her hands. "What did Michael tell you?" "He said we're over. Claimed he'd ruin me like I ruined him. Who does he think he is? He doesn't control my life." "He's your husband, you fool. What did Michael do when you got back on Sunday?" She glanced down at her desk, sniffing. "He sold my car. Said he didn't need it anymore since he didn't have a wife to drive it." "Oh my goodness!" exclaimed Gwen. At that moment, the door flew open, and Stephanie Jameson, Vice President of Mortgages and Acquisitions at Chemical Bank, stormed in, followed by Sophia's secretary, Angela. "I'm sorry, Mrs. Barron, she just walked in." "It's all right, Angela. Come on in, Steph," Sophia said with a hint of sarcasm. "What on earth have you done?" Just then, Gwen's phone rang. "Hello?" "Yes, Hank, I'm with her now." "No, we haven't heard anything from him yet. I'm just getting the details." "Yes, dear. I'll let you know as soon as I find out. Goodbye, dear." "That was my husband. He wants to know if you've heard from Michael today." "No, I haven't spoken to him since last night," Sophia replied. With that, she dialed her husband's number, but her phone beeped twice, then announced her service had been disconnected. She stared at her Nokia as if it were toxic. "He cut off my phone," she murmured. Gwen sighed. "Oh, this is bad. Very bad." Just then, Angela entered, saying a young woman was urgently requesting to see her. She said it's about your marriage. A tense silence filled Sophia's office. "Send her in, Angela." A tall, blonde woman in a navy skirt, ivory blouse, 3-inch heels, and blazer entered with a small briefcase. She approached Sophia's desk, looked around the room, and fixed her gaze on Sophia. "Are you Mrs. Sophia Barron, at least for now?" Stephanie interjected. "Listen here, lady. Who do you think you are?" "Yes, I'm Michael Barron's wife. Do you have something for me?" Sophia asked, dreading what was coming. "Congratulations, Mrs. Barron, you've been served." The woman handed her a large envelope, snapped a quick photo, and headed for the door. Pausing, she turned back to the group. "7 years ago, my mother tore our family apart just like you did. Hope it was worth it. Good day." Sophia dropped her head onto the desk, gripping the envelope. Gwen rushed over, helping her sit up as she struggled to breathe, hyperventilating. Meanwhile, Stephanie dialed a number on her phone, connecting to Michael's office. "Chicago American Globe, Mr. Barron's office. How may I assist you?" "I need to speak with Mr. Barron. It's Mrs. Stephanie Jameson from Chemical Bank." "May I ask what this is regarding, ma'am?" "It's about his wife." "I'm sorry, ma'am. He's not accepting calls from his wife. He said to tell her to—" "Just put him on the phone." "One moment, please." Soon, Michael's voice came through the speaker. "Well, Stephanie, the whole crowd's gathered around Sophia. Let me guess, Jessica and Gwendolyn are there too, with the Queen of Fidelity. What do you need?" "Michael, this is extreme. She's in pieces and you're not helping. What's your plan here? Ask her what she expected to happen when she left for her special weekend. Tell her to get a lawyer and talk to them. I won't speak to her until we sit down with the kids on Saturday. Goodbye, Stephanie." Click. "Oh no," Gwen whispered. "You're in serious trouble." "Well," Stephanie replied, "your only option is to lay it all out and beg for mercy." "Oh wait, you already did that this weekend, didn't you?" Sophia's head hit the desk again, the sound echoing through the office, but no one moved to help her. Michael ended the call and then dialed his son in New Jersey. Michael Jr. was in a committed relationship, and Michael hoped this situation wouldn't impact it, but they needed to talk. After 3 rings, his son picked up. "Hey, Dad, what's up?" "Not great, son. How's Tara?" "She's good, Dad. What's going on? Is Mom okay?" "She's physically fine. I need you and your sister here for a family meeting on Saturday. Tara's welcome to come too. 2 tickets will be waiting for you at the counter on Friday. Janine will send you the details. Don't ask questions. Just be here. It's important." "Dad, what's going on? You're really scaring me." "Son, I haven't spoken to you like this in over 10 years, but I need you to trust me now. Just come, and don't ask questions." He hung up, deciding he wouldn't try to influence their views on their mother. He'd let them come to their own conclusions. His conversation with his daughter went much the same way, though she sounded more emotional. She also agreed to meet him on Friday. The rest of his day passed quietly. He consulted his lawyer and updated his private investigator on any progress regarding Darren Watson. Meanwhile, at Gravely Publishing, Sophia's friends gathered, trying to console her as she sat overwhelmed, babbling and in tears. "What have I done? What have I done?" Sophia cried, barely able to process reality. Finally, Gwen stepped up. "We need to pull it together and find a way to even things out." She made a call on her cell phone. "Hey, Carolyn, it's Gwendolyn Harrelson. Can you take on a friend of mine for a divorce case?" "Her name is Sophia Barron." "Yes, her husband is Michael Barron." "Wait, what? I see. Thanks anyway." "What was that about?" someone asked. "She's already being seen as toxic. That was Carolyn Herrera. She's a tough lawyer who has no sympathy for either bad husbands or cheating spouses. When she heard Sophia's name, she knew the situation. She said if she took the case, her own husband would divorce her. They're devout Catholics with 5 kids, and they know Michael and Sophia. Plus, she's heard about the guy involved." Stephanie jumped in. "Let me give it a shot." She dialed a number on her cell phone. "Hi, this is Stephanie Jameson. Can I speak to Brett Walker?" "Yes. It's regarding a divorce matter." "Hi, Brett. I need to discuss a divorce case with you." "Oh, you've already heard." "Well, thanks anyway." She turned to Sophia. "No luck, honey. I'm running out of options. He heard about what happened and basically said, 'You brought this on yourself.' He also mentioned he wouldn't go up against Steve Dawson on this for anything." Sophia slumped forward, her head falling onto her arms on her desk. "Then, I called in a few friends to stir up some discreet trouble. Nothing major. I didn't want them getting caught. They put sugar in the gas tank, tossed paint balloons onto his car, then went to work with an air grinder and a rotozip tool, scratching up the hood, sides, roof, and rear deck. Finally, they deflated the tires and slashed the sidewalls, leaving those expensive Michelins totally wrecked. This back-and-forth retaliation was going to keep up for a while, and I didn't mind the expense. It took her some time, but she finally found a feminist lawyer willing to take her case. Everything was leading up to the family meeting. Friday in Chicago was cold, nearly as chilly as things were at home. The kids flew in from both coasts. My son brought his soon-to-be fiancée along. I hoped he was making the right decision, as this meeting was bound to be emotional. Their mom was still at the hotel, and they didn't quite understand why. I told them they'd get the chance to speak with her the next day. They asked where she was. She's at the Peninsula Hotel. If you want to see or talk to her, you can try there. I've tried, Dad. Her cell phone isn't working anymore. Why's that? It's been disconnected. Call her work or leave a message at the front desk. Strange she hasn't called you herself, isn't it? My daughter looked over at my son and his fiancée, asking, "What's going on?" "Your mom has some things to explain. I can't discuss it. You'll have to talk to her yourselves. You'll understand more if she tells you." They tried to reach her, but couldn't. Through her secretary, they set up a meeting for Saturday morning at 10 a.m. I took the kids out for dinner, and though it was a little awkward, we had a pleasant time. Saturday morning dawned clear and cold, typical for Chicago this time of year. At 10 o'clock, the kids sat with coffee, waiting for their mom to arrive. She showed up with the Honorable Kathleen O'Hara in tow. "Really, Sophia? Bringing your lawyer here in front of the kids? My client doesn't want her character attacked in front of her children. Your call." We moved into the living room where the kids rushed over to their mom, full of questions. "No questions for my client," Miss O'Hara announced. "What? Who is this, Mom?" asked my daughter. "I'm Miss Sophia Dawes' attorney. Your father is filing for divorce from her." The game was up. I just sat back with a quiet smile, saying nothing. Steve had advised me to either tell the truth or say nothing at all in this situation. Looking back, it was wise advice. My son was the first to speak. "What's going on, Mom?" "Please direct all questions to me," the lawyer replied. "Mom, what's happening?" Ashley asked. "You can talk to me, young lady. I'm your mother's spokesperson." "Mom, is this true?" my daughter persisted. "Miss Barron, don't make me remind you again," Miss O'Hara cut in. That's when Tara, my son's fiancée, snapped, "Shut up, lady." Needless to say, Miss O'Hara was stunned. "And who are you?" "I'm Miss Tara Longoria, Mr. Michael Barron Jr.'s fiancée. That makes me family, more than I can say for you." Now, things were getting interesting. Apparently, Michael Jr.'s mom didn't know about the engagement. And honestly, even I hadn't realized just how serious it was until I saw the diamond on Tara's left hand. I smiled, got up, and hugged my soon-to-be daughter-in-law, then turned to my son, hugged him, and shook his hand. "Congrats, son." He grinned back, saying, "Watch it, old man. You know she's taken." Meanwhile, his mom looked stunned. "Oh, my baby!" Sophia exclaimed. "Sorry, Mom, but you'll need to talk through your attorney," her child reminded her. She choked up, and Miss O'Hara announced, "I think we're done here," getting up to leave. That was the last straw for me. "Sit down, Massachusetts AM. This is a family meeting. You knew that, and you still brought a lawyer. You can either stay quiet or leave. Her kids and I need to talk to Sophia. Understood?" The room fell silent. Miss O'Hara reluctantly sat back down, looking visibly embarrassed. "Now, Sophia, other than today, I haven't told our kids anything yet. You're up first. Don't blow it." I shot the lawyer a look when she tried to speak, and she quickly fell silent. Flustered, Sophia finally managed to say, "Your father wants a divorce." Michael looked at her with a hard expression. "Why, Mom?" She looked away, barely whispering, "I don't know." Michael, Ashley, and Tara turned their gazes to me. I still had my side of the story to tell, so I kept my composure. "Really, Sophia? That's how you're handling this?" She started to cry, barely managing. "Your turn?" She sobbed again. "Fine. Your mother and I went to a children's charity gala last Friday. She ended up mingling with a man who offered her a weekend of so-called excitement, promising her experiences she'd never forget. This happened right on the ballroom balcony. Women who'd been targeted by him warned me about his intentions. Then they left together and she told me she was going home with him for the weekend. I feel terrible for not stepping in. She's an adult and can make her own choices, but I regret not standing up to him. I could have caused a scene, but I didn't. I feel ashamed and embarrassed. Your mother, however, went ahead with her choice, just as everyone predicted. I didn't hear from her until Sunday afternoon, around 4:45, when she texted that she was on her way home. She got back around 5:25, and he dropped her off. I could feel my anger rising. She walked up like nothing happened. Her keys didn't work because I changed the locks. I didn't want to risk her bringing him into our home. "You sold my car," she interjected. "I already explained. It was my car. I bought it. It was in my name. I gave you the money from the sale. I didn't give it away like you gave yourself." Sophia started to fall apart, her mascara and eyeliner smudging as tears rolled down her face. But you know what hurt the most? She wore her diamond necklace, the one I gave her for our 24th anniversary, and her Christmas sapphire earrings to the event. When she came home, she still had those, along with her wedding and engagement rings. I took those back because we're no longer married, and the engagement ring was my grandmother's. But you know what was missing? The one piece of jewelry she said meant the most to her. What was her favorite? The one she loved? Even though it was just a cheap replica? The one I promised to replace with a better version? The ring she always wore? My kids knew right away. "Lady Di's ring," they said. Sophia broke down crying. "Yeah, Lady Di's ring. She lost it. And you know why? Please, Michael, stop. Please. He wanted a keepsake. She gave it away just like she gave herself." My kids held on to each other, stunned. Sophia was falling apart. "Please, stop. I'll sign everything. Just stop." So I spent the weekend and the whole week sorting things out and crying. I cried a lot. That's why there's nothing left now. Then Ashley said, "Daddy, can't you forgive her for one mistake?" Michael Jr. added, "Yeah, Dad, it was just one time. Mom deserves better from you. Move on." I missed the first chance to confront this head on, feeling unprepared for their reaction. I was shaken. Was I really the only one feeling this pain? Was it all my fault? Did my kids even understand what was going on? Are you even listening to what we're discussing? Do you know what she did? Let's go over it. Tell me, Sophia, did you have an inappropriate conversation with a man who wasn't your husband last Friday night? I talked to a nice guy. Another opportunity slipped by. Answer the question. Well, I suppose I might have. Yet another chance gone. I was still holding up, and she couldn't give a direct answer. And did he tell you to inform your husband that you were going home with him for the night? Yes, but I'm an adult, and, a close call, but I was still steady. I see. So, did you sleep with him? Because I wasn't there. I don't know, so tell us what you did all weekend. Did you play games, recite poetry, write letters to the kids? Did you even think to call your husband? You're nothing but a hoe. She threw an insult, but I didn't respond. I wanted it, so I did it, she admitted. Know this. I'll have you questioned under oath about that weekend. Everyone will know, if they don't already. And that woman who served you the papers? She's actually a lawyer. She volunteered because her family went through something similar. That's why she became an attorney. Sophia finally understood she was in trouble. She broke down completely, all her confidence gone. Facing me and our 3 kids, she said, "I'll sign everything and give it to Peter today." O'Hara intervened. "I don't think that's in your best interest." "You're fired, Kathleen. Send your invoice to my office and I'll take care of it." Right on target. I felt like I'd hit a home run straight into center field at Comiskey Park. Sophia walked to the door, glanced back at me. "Goodbye, Michael. Kids, I'll call you tomorrow and we'll meet up." She left, the door closing behind her. Miss O'Hara stayed in the living room. "Well," she said to me, "I hope you're happy. She's devastated." "Get out of my house, you witch!" I shouted. The attorney huffed, turned, and left. That's when the backlash started. "Dad, how could you be so harsh to Mom, treating her like that?" my daughter said. "What's wrong with you, Dad? Are you seriously divorcing Mom over this?" I thought to myself, glad I sent both of them to college. Do you think I should just accept this? Is this what you both expect in your own marriages? I turned toward Tara. "If that's the case, get out now, Tara," she gasped, staring at me. "I'd never do anything like that, Dad. It's wrong from every angle." "Surely, Dad, you're not actually going through with this," Mike added. "Mike, it's decided. And if you can't support me on this, don't invite me to any future events. Any events." I held his gaze, watching as his own temper, so similar to mine, flared up. Ashley, though, was still complaining. "Dad, why were you so mean? Mom was so upset when she left. She's really hurting. You should forgive her and take her back." I was stunned that my kids were taking her side despite everything. Finally, Tara spoke up. "Dad, this might bother Mike, but you're right. Mom didn't even acknowledge what she did wrong or apologize. Not that it would change things, but at least some remorse would have been the decent thing." Tension filled the room. About 2 hours later, they called their mom and arranged to visit her. I gave Mike a spare key and reminded him to drive safely. He looked at me and asked if I wanted to come along. "Are you kidding me?" I said, raising my voice. Mike stared at me, saying he just didn't understand me. Meanwhile, I doubled down on my efforts against the guy, and my allies seemed to be enjoying themselves while handling it. One of their moves was to switch his license plate and then anonymously report his car as stolen. I was impressed by how easily they accessed his vehicles, even though he kept both his Ferrari and Cadillac in a garage. They also tailed him on the Dan Ryan Expressway, using a clever device to manipulate the car's computer. By slowing down traffic and boxing him into the middle lane, They forced his Ferrari into the barrier when he tried to exit. It sustained heavy damage, landing him in the hospital for 10 days. As a result, his insurance premiums skyrocketed, and he lost his original coverage. The guy was going through the worst luck possible, and whenever the cops got involved, they didn't seem too keen to investigate. They knew his reputation and turned a blind eye to his troubles. Most of them likely assumed some angry husband was getting his revenge. Thank goodness for the police. That evening, Steve called to let me know that Sophia had delivered the legal documents herself. He had a favorable judge lined up. His son had been a victim of the same guy 3 years ago, and the judge assured us he would fast-track both the divorce and the alienation of affection lawsuit. As for the adultery claim, it was uncertain how far we could take it, but it was worth trying. After the initial confrontation, the kids became distant, with only Tara showing any support for my decision. About a week later, they returned to school, and the divorce process moved forward. When the final decree came through, I felt a wave of relief, just in time for the Cancer Society ball. I knew the guy would be there, and I was itching for some payback. At a coffee shop, one of my friends pitched an idea so clever that I had to see it myself. I called Lana to ask if she'd be attending. She mentioned she'd been invited but hadn't decided. I suggested she come. It would be worth it to witness some entertainment I had in mind. We arrived at the event and mingled, noticing Sophia with her friends, Gwendolyn and Stephanie. She was trying to engage with the guy, but he was fixated on a petite blonde in a green dress. Meanwhile, his 2 associates were keeping her husband occupied while he made his move on her. He led her into a private room and shut the door behind them. I approached the husband, offering to help if he'd trust me and follow my lead. He looked panicked, so Lana explained the situation to him. I warned him that making a scene could get him hurt, but if he stayed calm, they'd still leave together, just a bit embarrassed. He looked at the goons, thought for a moment, and reluctantly agreed. I promised to connect him with people who could assist him, and suggested he might be able to embarrass his wife enough to get an apology. He went along with the plan. As they came out of the private room, the wife leading, we followed them. They stopped to grab their coats while the goons arranged for their Cadillac to be brought around. We exited just as they were getting into the back seat, with him pulling her close and kissing her. After they closed the door, the second goon climbed into the front passenger seat. The husband was tense, but I urged him to wait. My friend's plan involved 2 of his associates who worked at an auto detail shop. They had given the guy's office a discount coupon for an interior cleaning and free car wash. While cleaning the car, they planted 3 smoke bombs that emitted a skunk-like smell, each with electronic detonators. As the car's brake lights blinked and it began to pull forward, it suddenly stopped about 10 feet later, hitting a taxi on the front right side. The doors swung open, and 4 people stumbled out, coughing and gagging, with smoke pouring out of the car. The blonde's dress slipped down, and her underwear ended up on the pavement for all to see. The woman's husband rushed to her side, though he was a bit unsteady from the smell and smoke. I smirked as the jerk struggled to stand, hobbling on his injured leg. Just then, the police arrived, and as the jerk moved toward his former lover, her husband stepped in, delivering a punch to his stomach and a kick to his groin. Down he went. The husband quickly led his wife away, ignoring the lingering skunk smell as he scolded her while they left. Turning to Lana, I said, "Score 1 for the good guys." I had given the husband my business card with my cell number and told him to call me the next day. Then I dialed a speed dial number on my phone. "Hello?" a voice answered. "Great job," I said. "Thanks," he replied, and I ended the call. After giving the husband my card and telling him to reach out if he needed, Lana and I headed to her townhome, where things quickly got intense. We ended up in her bedroom, exploring a deeper kind of connection. Although I hadn't been celibate since my divorce, this felt like a new level of intimacy. In bed, she pushed me down and focused all her energy on me, leaving marks as she nibbled. She climaxed powerfully, crying out her late husband's name as she did. It was a raw moment, her emotions spilling out. She collapsed, crying, then composed herself and apologized for the outburst. I reassured her, recognizing her pain. We talked, acknowledging the intensity of the moment. I wasn't certain what I felt for her, but there was definitely a connection. After resting, I showered, got dressed, and kissed her before leaving. She asked if she'd be okay, and I promised to call. In the following months, Lana and I grew closer while family matters continued to unfold. My son got married, and despite everything, they invited his mother, expecting me to manage the situation. I assured him I would, but I didn't attend. Tara's family didn't know the full story and weren't pleased with me. When Tara's wife filled them in, her mom was shocked and her dad was furious. The Italian side of her family cut ties with my ex-wife, and Tara's grandmother even spat in Sophia's face. Things escalated when one of Sophia's friends hit on her, causing a scene. Sophia broke down and left the reception. I sent Tara a thoughtful note and a check, and I wrote her parents a letter explaining why I couldn't be around Sophia. I also sent my son a straightforward email. The wedding had taken place in Kenilworth, New Jersey. A year later, my son and daughter-in-law welcomed a baby boy named Michael Giovanni Barron, honoring both his dad and grandfathers. Tara invited me to the christening, and I was thrilled. I flew to Newark, New Jersey, booked a hotel, and attended the ceremony at St. Michael the Archangel Catholic Church in Palisades Park, New Jersey. Meeting my grandson, my namesake, was pure joy. But then, I saw Sophia arrive with someone, and I nearly lost my cool. She approached me, and I turned to my son, asking if she was really here. Tara gently pleaded with me to stay calm just this once. "Sorry, honey," I said, handing her an envelope before leaving. Back at the hotel, I checked out, headed to the airport, caught a flight back to Chicago, and went home. Afterward, I nearly had to change my phone number. Childish? Maybe. But that's just how it went. Time passed, and Michael landed a job in Chicago with the Justice Department. When I called to congratulate him and Tara and asked about my grandson, I heard her voice in the background. "Who's on the phone?" she called out from a distance. I hung up and powered off my phone. After that, I mostly kept to myself. The only person I stayed in regular touch with was Lana, who had become a close friend and confidant. My quiet campaign against Darren Woodson was still underway. He was trying to find out who was behind it, but he hadn't succeeded. Even my son and Tara knew about it. It was minor stuff, but it had become something of a legend. Time moved on. About 3 months later, Tara called me at work. "Dad, next Saturday is little Michael's 3rd birthday. We're throwing a party and we want you there." "I'd love to, sweetheart, but you know how I feel. I don't want to ruin it. Mom's not invited. I told Michael, your son, that she's not welcome that day. If he invites her, I'll cut him off." I really admired this girl. My son was lucky to have her. "I'd be honored to come." I got the details and cleared my schedule for the day. I called FAO Schwartz and ordered a Tonka dump truck, just like the one I had as a kid. They wrapped it and sent it to my office. I remembered getting one for Michael one Christmas, and he loved it. No electronics, just metal and rubber wheels. They were always a hit, especially with grandfathers. I arrived at 10 a.m. on Saturday. We had a wonderful time. Lunch, cake, coffee, and then presents. I spoke with Tara's parents, who said they could see why their daughter respected me so much. Tara's dad loved the dump truck. Reminds me of the one I had as a kid. Great choice, Mike. I liked him. Little Mike played with the truck all over the backyard until he got tired. His mom and grandma took him in for a nap. Even my son was courteous. He brought me a beer and suggested I relax in the backyard. I took his advice and settled into a lawn chair, feeling at ease as I sipped my bud. A shadow fell over me, and I looked up to see my ex-wife holding a glass of what looked like white wine. "Hello, Michael. Mind if I join you?" I shot her a look, but didn't respond. She set her large shoulder bag down and sat, crossing her ankles, a pose she once used to charm me. Not this time. My glare made her visibly uneasy. "You're not making this easy, are you? Anyway, Michael said you'd be here, and his wife made it clear I wasn't invited. He may not be thrilled about it, but he thought it was worth a try to patch things up between us. Michael thinks we deserve another chance. I want us to be together again, to wake up side by side, to grow old together. It's been lonely these past years. What do you say? Can we give it another shot?" I looked her over. She'd aged, put on weight, and had developed a nervous twitch. No apology, just a speech. I wondered what had happened to the woman I married. I sighed, finished my beer, and stood up. "Well?" she asked. "What's your answer?" "Not just no, but hell no, Sophia. I've been through hell these past 3.5 years because of you." Maybe it was harsh, but it felt good to say. I turned and walked away. I headed up to the patio, then slipped through the sliding glass doors into the kitchen, where I ran into my son, who was grinning at me. "So how'd it go, Dad? Not too rough, right?" A fire shot rang out, followed by screams as guests rushed outside. I grabbed my son's arm. "Your mother may be hurt. Go check on her." He went pale and hurried outside. I grabbed a water bottle, walked to the living room, and sat alone on the couch. The police arrived, gathering statements. A .40 tool can do serious damage. I answered their questions, explaining I hadn't spoken to my ex-wife in years. I consoled my daughter-in-law, who was in tears, then left for home. Lana called, having heard the news. I assured her I was managing and didn't need help. "No, I'll be fine, but thanks for the offer. On Monday, I called in Stu Phillips, our top crime photographer in Chicago, known for his award-winning work. Stu, I need a favor. My ex-wife took her own life at my grandson's birthday party on Saturday. Yeah, most people have heard about it, boss. We're sorry, even if you two weren't close. Thanks, I appreciate it. Do you have contacts on the forensics team? I'd like photos of her skull, her head. Color 10 by 12 would be ideal. Stu gave me a curious look, mulling it over. That's an unusual request, but I think I can pull it off. I know some folks who owe me one. Might be a bit strange, though. Thanks, Stu, I owe you. I'll have it in a few days, boss. A new angle for my revenge campaign started forming in my mind. The wake lasted 3 days at an upscale funeral home on the west side. Her casket stayed closed due to her appearance. She had a large circle of friends, with hundreds attending. I wasn't there. Word spread that my absence didn't go unnoticed. The day of her funeral was cold, gray, and rainy, leaving me feeling chilled and damp. The procession included 4 flower cars, 3 limos, and a hearse, with about 60 cars following. I wasn't one of them. Instead, I stood at the cemetery watching from a distance through the misty rain. I observed as they carried the coffin to the grave. Despite the dreary weather, a large crowd gathered, and the priest spoke kindly about her, making me wonder who he was really describing. I was surprised he even agreed to speak, given the nature of her passing. I noticed my son scanning the area, likely searching for me. Once the service concluded, people began to leave, and eventually, only close friends and family remained. As the crowd thinned further, it dwindled down to just my kids. They walked to the limos, my son lingering by the back door of the Cadillac, glancing around one last time. When he didn't spot me, he got inside. The car slowly pulled away, fading into the mist. I stepped out from behind the trees just as the groundskeepers were preparing to close the grave. Approaching her coffin, I briefly considered a small act of defiance, but found that all the anger and resentment had faded. Somehow, it was just gone. Looking down at the woman I once loved, I sighed and said my final goodbye. I forgive you. Even if you never recognized your wrongs, I forgive you. I used to love you, but not anymore. Arriving at work the next day, I saw a large envelope on my desk. I hesitated, knowing what was inside, but eventually gathered the courage to open it. The photo wasn't pleasant, but it was her. With the upcoming Children's Society benefit marking the 4th anniversary of everything that had unfolded, I called Lana and invited her to go with me. She accepted eagerly, and we arranged for me to pick her up around 8 p.m. I then summoned the Society editor, our investigative reporter, and a photographer to my office for a planning meeting. Once everyone arrived, I explained my plan. Next weekend, I want that expose on Darren Woodson published. There were nods of agreement. Only verified, factual, legally supported accounts, backed by depositions and sworn statements. No speculation. We should have enough solid evidence to bring him down. I want photographers at the event to capture everything, and then we'll interview the organizers to get a tally on the proceeds. Can we make it happen? I don't see any issues, boss. We'll be ready to publish by midnight Friday, with room for any new photos. Thank you, everyone, I said. A week later, I escorted Lana Tooley to the children's charity event. After checking our coats, we mingled with friends. There he was, prowling through the crowd like a predator, scanning for his next target. He soon zeroed in on a pretty brunette with long hair, whose husband had just gone to the bar for drinks. Her champagne glass was nearly empty. She smiled as Woodson approached and whispered something in her ear. Blushing slightly, she leaned closer to him. He brushed her arm, then her shoulder, and she shivered, moving in even closer. I saw one of his henchmen positioning himself near the balcony doors while the other made his way toward her husband. Sensing something was wrong, the husband turned and shot Woodson a challenging look, but Woodson just continued his advances. I turned to Lana. Now, I said. She stepped away and moved closer to the second henchman, waiting. Woodson whispered to the woman again, took her arm, and began to lead her toward the balcony. She grinned, appearing to enjoy the attention. I stepped between them and spoke. Excuse me, you don't know me, but this man made similar advances toward my wife about 4.5 years ago. She gave in and went with him for the weekend. It destroyed our marriage and led to this, I said, showing her a photo of my wife's bruised face. This is my wife. She took her own life last week. I placed the photo in her hand. She went pale, began to tremble, and dropped her glass, which shattered, causing a stir in the crowd. This is your chance to avoid the same mistake. I discreetly signaled the photographers nearby as I noticed one of Woodson's henchmen moving toward me. The shocked woman looked at the photo, then turned to Woodson. "You jerk!" she yelled, slapping him across the face, her nails scraping his skin. His bodyguard began to move forward, but Lana intervened. "Excuse me," Lana said calmly, holding him back. I turned to leave, brushing past Woodson with my right shoulder. He glared at me. "It's you!" he snarled, reaching for my shoulder. "Let go of me!" I growled, spinning to my left, then pivoting back to land a solid punch on his nose with my right fist. His nose crumpled, his jaw cracked, and blood gushed as he dropped like a sack of bricks. His henchmen stood frozen while cameras flashed around them. Lana took my arm, and the shaken brunette's husband hurried to her side. "Please, take me home now," she said, her voice trembling. Lana and I stepped onto the dance floor, the crowd parting as we moved to the center. Facing the crowd, I pointed directly at Woodson. "I should feel ashamed for what that man got away with," I exclaimed. "You should all feel ashamed for supporting him by donating here. The charity, Chicago, and society as a whole need to be accountable for his actions. This weekend, a newspaper article will reveal the facts and the courageous statements of his victims. Read it and let it sink in." Lana pulled me away before I lost control, and we moved through the crowd. Back home, she iced my sore fist, and we shared a passionate night together. The consequences came quickly and were severe. While his actions weren't criminal, public opinion was unforgiving. He became a pariah, with charities rejecting his donations. Contributions to the Children's Gala dropped by 65%. Multiple organizations returned his money, removed him from boards, or formally censured him. Even the NAACP cut ties. His damaged reputation as a stockbroker led to the loss of his license and job. He tried to sue me and have me arrested, but the husband of the woman he targeted, a Cook County ADA, started his own investigation, which made the lawsuit pointless. 2 weeks after he was fired, he was found in an alley near the old stockyards, his Johnson removed and placed in his mouth. Too bad. Lana and I became a couple, though we're uncertain about marriage. Reconnecting with my kids and building relationships with her children has been both challenging and rewarding. We're working through the challenges as best we can,